And I guess I'd like to open this up by thinking about the vision of those people who decided that there was a place for the Canadian Fire Alarm Association. The people who bravely decided, well, you know, that other company, they're not our enemy. We can get along and we can help everybody go forward. We can help this be a better industry if we all work together. And even now at a board meeting, you'll hear somebody say something like, that's that company or that's that company. But for the most part, they're trying to say, we just don't want to zero in just on one company. This is a shared experience. And so that the old companies, the companies that were there at the beginning or some of the large companies are still there. The vision is still there because we all still need some of the same things, but certainly the vision has changed. It's become a lot more about education. It's become a lot more about the quality of technicians and the work that they do out in the field. And I'll just go through, there's a bit of housekeeping. So if you missed that monologue, I guess you'll have to look at the recording. But 50 years is a long time. And, you know, hope everybody that we'll have 50 more. And I would hope that the mission and the vision changes even then, because it should serve what's needed at the time. So I do have some stuff. I'll try the mic like that. There we go. It wasn't working a minute ago. Yale's back there in the corner just checking for that audio to make sure it's going to work the whole time. Thank you. We're all set. Good. So this is a hybrid event, as I've said. We have people online. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you there are going to be 4 motions on the table at this meeting. And only the members will be voting. Members and I guess some technicians who also have a membership would also vote that way. But there are some people, and if you know that you're not eligible, then don't vote. If you think that you're not eligible and you vote anyways, we will track you down, find your car, and give you a parking ticket. All right? During the vote, though, we will be sharing a QR code on the screen, and if you can get it with your phone, that's good. And if you can't, just try and let us know ahead of time that you won't be doing the voting on your phone, and we will look for a way to be able to help you get your vote and of course, make sure that it comes across. We don't expect any of the voting to be anything real controversial this time, so it's really good that we get to practice this, at a time when we're not solving world peace or something like that. So we'll be using that QR code. If you do have an issue with the QR code, even if you try to, then just let somebody know. We'll make sure that we have people in the room looking around for anybody that's having an issue at the time. Let's see, and I wanted to make sure that, questions in the chat. So online, if you can make sure, the people in the room here, the good thing is they can just ask questions and they can put up their hand and somebody can respond to them. But the people online would just ask you to put, and I'll say this word, pertinent questions in the chat, right? Saying hi to Joe, who's in Vancouver, and I'm in, Ontario, shouldn't necessarily be part of the chat. It'll be easier for our moderator to go through the chat if you just put pertinent questions and comments in there. And, all right. And so at this point, I would, it's 50 years. I don't think we have any of the founders in the room. Jerry here? Jerry's not here, right? Might be online, right? Jerry, wherever you are, if you can stand. I'm just kidding. All right, but I would like anybody who's been on the board already to please stand and be recognized. Yep. Please stand up in this room. Are you not a board member? Okay. Everybody who's a current board member, please stand. Yes, absolutely. And what I'd like to do is appreciate them right now. Thank you. And some of us will be going forward also on the same board, so we'll appreciate them along the way, or maybe the next president will do that next year. It's important that 50 years has gone by, but it's really important that the people who came before us did so. They set out the carpet, in some ways, the path that we've been walking. And I think that it was super important that it's there because, well, here we are, right? Looking closely at maybe being able to connect all of Canada, welcome people to, our mission is to help property and lives, really, right? So who wouldn't get behind that, right? Well, there's different ways to get there, and under fire alarm, that's our niche right now. That's where we're focused, but it's a big job, even that. So it's good to see so many people in the room. All right. So now, let's see. Those will be officially my opening remarks. I'll call it to order, and I'll ask somebody. I'm going to have to play with this mic a little bit. Are we good there? Okay. All right. All right. So can somebody confirm quorum? We have quorum. Good. And then it's not on my screen, but I'll give you the Cole's Notes version. Anybody remember what Cole's Notes were? All right. Well, the Cole's Notes version are the shortened version, an abridged version of conflict of interest and restriction of competition. I know that it's part of my presentation, and we'll get all the verbiage for that. And as we work in our committees and in the board, really we need to remember that if we're talking about something where we're going to financially benefit, or one of our relatives is going to financially benefit, then we need to take pause and decide if that's a conflict of interest. Sometimes it won't be, because I can't think of anybody on the board that doesn't work in fire protection in some way. And so we all get some financial benefit. And so that's why maybe it's a little bit more of a gray area. But just think about that on the topic that you're talking about, and that's how you figure out whether it's a conflict or not. But if you think there might be, I think it's fair to say you can be in the conversation but step back during the vote. All right? That's my own abridged version of that. And of course, the other thing is, inside the organization, our role isn't to really squash competition, right? So we really don't talk about rates. We don't talk about a lot of money and that type of thing, because, well, really it's become education-based. Everything is about education. Educate the public, educate the AHJs, educate technicians, educate building owners and managers. It's all about education, right? And that's not financial. That's about just making this a better place. And let's see. So now, do we do a vote for this? No? Okay, all right. So we do want to approve the minutes from the last meeting dated June 21st, 2022. Lindsay was your chair that day, and this one? This way? All right. And what did you want me to show? Gotcha, okay. Oh, there. It was part of my... See, we already saved so much time. All right. Okay, so then we will be using the QR code for this one. All right, so this will be your first chance to use the QR code to take a vote. And for those of you at home, use your QR code. Now, again, this is for voting members, right? If you're not a voting member and you vote, you might as well just write down where your car is parked. Okay, anybody in the room having an issue with the QR code? One itchy forehead over there. Everybody okay? Good. Okay, so I'd say it's pretty much everybody approved. So I was expecting a percentage there, but that's okay. So we've got a 32 that carries, correct? Okay, so the motion carries, thank you. And I guess now, a couple minutes ahead, I have to tell you that I watch the time like a hawk. We're a couple minutes ahead, but that's okay. We'll jump into the video presentation. Okay, good.
Fire Alarm Association was put together after the industry realized that we certainly need a lot more structure under fire protection that wasn't there when they started. But I think some manufacturers got together and decided that they would help support the industry by creating the Canadian Fire Alarm Association.
The transition from a manufacturing-centric association to that of a service-centric association has been evolving over the years. And I think you would be surprised but happy that we're really involved in the training aspect and the ensuring that the quality of work is kept to the highest standard that we can possibly do.
So I think you'd be very pleased. First of all, boy, something lasts at 50 years. I wish you had a car like that. He would be happy. And I think if he was going to say something, he would probably be something along the lines of, keep it up.
CFAA has actually played a very important role in helping to protect life and property. That's been our mission since the day the association was created. Played a very important role throughout Canada in helping ensure that technicians in particular are properly trained and suitably qualified to ensure that life safety systems are going to do their jobs when they're called on it to perform their intended function.
I've worked in the CFAA administration office since May of 1999, just around the same time that the CFAA Fire Alarm Technology Program was approved by the Ontario Fire Marshal. Since that time, the technician training and registration program has expanded Canada-wide.
With respect to the CFAA, we are very interested in the work that they do to train technicians and service people in the field to deal with equipment such as ours.
Et ce qui permet aussi à Maple Hammer d'enrichir les connaissances de son personnel, entre autres de ses techniciens et son personnel aussi de vente et de recherche et développement.
You know, in the 1970s, when I first started as a technician, there was no education program at all. It was the Wild West. I want to thank all the people who volunteered over the years at the CFA to make my career very successful. And it was very, very important. Creation of the education program was a major change in the industry.
Canada has a very strong requirement for safety and inspections, and it's a great environment to have an association to drive some of those requirements and make sure that we've got good qualified people that are taking care of our systems to ensure people in this country are safe.
The Canadian Fire Alarm Association today is about managing the fire alarm companies that are doing the work, as well as the registering the technicians that are out working for the companies. We are going into a period where we may expand that scope, because now It encompasses all the education around that, and it's really much more robust than when it started. And you would expect that after 50 years for sure. The chapters for the Canadian Fire Alarm Association right now are British Columbia, Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Manitoba, Ontario, Quebec, and now we're working on an Atlantic chapter.
I'm very extremely happy to be a part of the CFAA and joining a well-respected organization throughout Canada, and hoping that we can bring the presence out to BC and the happy 50 years to them, and I'm just glad to be part of it.
I'm excited for the future. I'm excited for Alberta, and I'm glad to be a president and try to offer some guidance and help in regards to where we need to be present and the future.
Happy 50th anniversary to the CFAA. It's been an honor to be a part of it, and I'm looking forward to helping out in the next 50 years.
I think it's been a great 50 years, and I look forward to another one. We'll be around for another 50 years, but I'm sure the CFAA will be around for another 50 years easily. It's just a great organization.
We have to have that 50th message, be respectful of where we've come from, but really where we're going. And I think that is a little bit more of an exciting opportunity. It's great to have that history lesson about where we've come from, but the challenges that the association has dealt with, their history, that's it. I think we're going to need a new group with some new energy and some new ideas to help propel the association forward for another strong 50 years.
It's been a very rewarding and educational experience, and I really appreciate the opportunity to give back as well as an exam invigilator here in Ottawa. I want to take this opportunity to wish CFAA another successful 50 years in the fire and life safety industry.
Donc, avec la célébration du 50e anniversaire, je crois vraiment qu'on s'en va vers une plus grande proximité avec les membres et les techniciens enregistrés. C'est vraiment le souhait que j'ai le plus grand, de voir l'association devenir vraiment plus proche de ses membres, plus aussi à l'écoute des besoins et de ce que les membres ont comme défi quotidien dans le fond, dans l'exécution de leur tâches.
On behalf of the Atlantic Canadian technicians and members of the CFAA in Atlantic Canada, I want to personally thank the association for their hard work and their dedication, and congratulate them on their 50th anniversary. Here's to 50 more years.
It's just that excitement knowing that I'm a part of it, and I'm looking forward for the celebration as well.
And I'm hoping to see the CFAA bolster, continue to go forward stronger. The CFAA is in a great position to continue for another 50 years.
We've gone through 50 years. There have been lots of change. We expect that change will continue, and we believe that there will always be a requirement or where the industry will need support from the Canadian Fire Alarm Association.
I'm so pleased to help lead this association that has a focus on fire protection and life safety. It is important to celebrate our accomplishments and our 50-year history. Our members and technicians across Canada represent the best of the fire alarm industry, and they volunteer countless hours of their time to improving fire and life safety outcomes across Canada. Our staff are also very dedicated to the same mission and vision of the CFAA. Happy anniversary, CFAA.
We are the CFAA. All right. Can I read those? Let me just move this a little bit this way. Mic is still good. We have a bit of a joke going, right? And now the audio's still here. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'll highlight some of our accomplishments. We'll go through the activities, committee updates, phase 2 of the CFAA website enhancements, codes, standards. There's a lot of stuff in here. And the clicker's working, so we will click it. Let's see, we have 4 hours. We'll keep it on time. So some of this information I'm not going to read word for word. We'll look for some highlights. You can read, and you'll be able to pick up some of that. But certainly, we've remained steadfast in that mission to maximize the effectiveness and use of fire alarm systems in the protection of life and property in Canada. Certainly then, the way we do it 440 members. Somebody asked me today how many members we had. 29 new members this year. So we're showing not only sustainability, but some growth. That's really good. And 95% of the members are staying. There are some of us, well, maybe not me, but there are some people who are retiring, and as they retire, it's good to see this thing we call fire alarm isn't going to just go away, right? It's not going to just disappear one day. 280 new trained technicians, and I know I've trained a few of them myself, but it's good that we're starting to track that, because that does give us a sense for what's coming down the pipe. 3,500 registered technicians and trainees, and 9 chapters, which you heard from people across the country, and some of them are in the room. So certainly if you have questions about what's going on in any part of the country, this is a great place to be, and you can find out, usually by speaking directly to the person. So what have we done? 9 videos, 2,700 people attended technician seminars. Phil and I were talking earlier, and I was saying that my vision for CFAA a long time ago was just to have technicians who were more open to training, right? We used to try and train them in-house, and they'd say, oh, that's really great that you want to train us, but we don't need to learn this. So now they need to learn it, right? 18,000 hours of training taken by technicians. Wow, that's quite a bit. A long time ago, I guess back in 2016, I did a number, and we were looking at, well, how much does that cost, right? Because if we wanted to tell building owners and managers how much are we investing in training, at the time it was $3.9 billion across the country. Let's see what we got. So this is our 3rd online annual general meeting, and interestingly enough, even the room here has gotten bigger. Between online and here, it means that if we're talking about our crowd, the crowd is getting a little bit bigger, and I think that certainly helps. And the more people who get involved, the better. And I guess just because I don't have my glasses on, it's like 100th anniversary. Are we talking about that already? No, it's the National Fire Prevention Week, and we sponsored their 100th anniversary. So we're getting involved, and we got involved there. This stuff, I'll leave most of it to read, but we're helping with ULC standards. I always tell people when they want to know what the CFAA is, I tell them, open the standard, crack open the standard, and they'll see people like Don Boynowski's name and, all these other, and I say, I met those people. Where? I met them at the head office at the board meeting. And that's who we are. We're part there too. We're involved in the CFAA and the ULC standards. Let's see what else we got. We did a white paper on fire safety in smart buildings, new discipline policy. In fact, this is so new, I didn't even know about the whole thing, but it had changed. And so I would urge you, if you haven't read the policy, go back and read the policy some more, because it certainly has a lot more teeth. And I think what I mean by that is that it really can do a lot more as far as molding our industry going forward, right? At first, in the very early version of the discipline policy, it was only building owners or fire inspectors who could send in a complaint. That has changed. And so again, without getting into all the words on that, look at the discipline policy, because the idea is really that we make this a better industry. Not that it's particularly bad, but it can always be better. We're continuing with our strong performance financially, and I guess that could be good, but it could be bad too. If you're a non-for-profit and you're gathering up a whole bunch of money, we better figure out where to spend it appropriately. And I think appropriately is part of the point there. Yeah, a little bit's gathering up, and we're looking for those really appropriate ways to spend it and put it back in. And I think our treasurer may field some questions if you have questions about stuff like that. But I think things are getting better, and as we go through. And the final thing is they developed and automated the online membership renewal, which has really started to swell. All of a sudden, all the companies, you need to choke that. It's not about membership, right? All right. So the online membership and automatic renewal, what that does is it lets companies, it sort of gives them a gentle little reminder, and then it makes it pretty easy for them to just automatically renew. Technicians, we talked about 3,500, 75 hours of new continuing education training content has been offered, and over 1,780 technicians completed the mandatory report writing and communications education. Now, you heard the word mandatory, so what that means is about another, doubling that number will also then be coming through. So that's good. Before we develop a course 2, which we've started to put some skin on the bones, it'll be important that people get through this. Fire inspectors are looking at reports that are getting written, and they sometimes they say, what language is this? Is this some kind of doctor language? You can't read anything, and is it Morse code, or how are we reading all these reports? Because the reports really are important, and so that's part of what that was all about. We're getting the feedback. Even employers are saying that my technicians aren't communicating as effectively as they could, and that's what that course was about. All right, that's the wrong button. There we go. All right, launched a hybrid training. In fact, some of that technology has been used right now. LinkedIn group on CFAA. A technician information session was really powerful. I believe I was there. Sanj, you're in the room, right? There he is. Okay, good. Talking about the growth and really what they can expect. And for those people who knew somebody that was thinking about becoming a technician, I think that would have been very valuable, and that could be something we could do going forward as well. A new online CFAA course 4. So if there are some people who struggled with course 4 before, now there's an online version. And of course, that is the electricity course. Electronics is still a bit of a monster. Actually, electricity was 3. Electronics is 4. Yeah. Okay. But now we're alluding to this course 2. We put some key things in there to make course 2 up till now was just about taking a college level communication course. And for those of you who've been in college and went through whatever discipline you went through, maybe they got you to do a little bit of public speaking, a presentation, a little bit of report writing, but not very much report writing. They definitely didn't teach you anything about fire alarm or how important it is, and how sometimes your reports become part of a legal, either maybe a prosecution or a defense, right? Your paperwork can make a world of difference. So that's course 2. And in 2023, we continue to champion the initiatives, things like, the biggest one for most of us is we were looking to try to address the shortage of technicians. We've co-hosted Fire Protection Conference, identify product supply chain challenges. Anybody waiting for smoke alarms from Mexico, right? I think that's been cleared up, but I don't think we solved that, but it's been solved. But we knew about it. Advocate for timely harmonization. That we're not sure exactly how that's going to end up, but we're there, and we're trying to see how that impacts us across Canada. And then, of course, advocate for the regulatory language that identifies Canadian Fire Alarm Association or the training of those technicians as useful. And certainly, in a lot of places, there's no certificate of qualification. This is a good place to start to say, at least these people know the fire alarm. So with 9 chapters, there they are, and registered with the registered technicians all across Canada, and I'll jump to 400 plus members. And of course, I should point out, up in here, just watching the guy flip that over there, that Atlantic Canada includes Newfoundland and all of the Atlantic provinces down on this end as well. So that's one big chapter right now. There's been some talk about Newfoundland setting up their own. I guess in Labrador they would maybe associate with Quebec, but probably not. And you know, I think it's a 5-hour ferry ride from Newfoundland to North Sydney in Nova Scotia. Just not going to do that to come to a meeting in Halifax, which is another 5 hours drive. So it would maybe make sense for them to do their own, and likely that's what we're going to be looking at. So some places you'll see where we've kept including Newfoundland, and that's why. Alberta, this year they developed and had their first hybrid, and of course they're working there with electrical and building associations to represent the CFAA. British Columbia, Phildu is here. There's a new chapter out there. Sometimes new chapters need some ideas, right? When I first joined CFAA and became a chapter president a year later, was about education and being able to set stuff up for technicians in different areas. Like in Quebec, they're doing some work with the government right away. In Manitoba, similar. You know, I know Derek's done a lot of work with that, but that's kind of in each area they have their own thing to work on. I'll try and stay on book and not get off on too many tangents. And in Quebec, of course, they're working with the AEC and with CGEP, and of course advocating Canadian fire alarm technicians. And of course, they're going to be working with the Committee Ministry of Public Safety. They have an RBQ and fire preventionist department, and they're working on that to improve the programming in B2 treatment occupancies. I guess is B2 the same as a B2 here? Yes. Okay, good. Thank you. It's good to be in a room with experts, right? All right. Atlantic Canada, of course, New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, PEI, and Newfoundland. The chapter has, and Lorna's here. Did I see her? There she is. Thank you, Lorna. But they're seeking to get a wider recognition. There was, and you know, I was on the education committee when Newfoundland sort of came up with this idea, we'll cover everybody. And it wasn't quite that easy because what we started back in 2016 was to bring every technician through the same arches, right? They all know the same thing. They've all been to one standard. And it's pretty hard to do if you say that we'll just bring in everybody from one province. But certainly we would like to see everybody be able to connect with this and connect with a base standard, which has been established, with this practical exam. And I'm not in any way suggesting everybody has to do the practical exam. If you're already a technician, we need to look at ways to get you included. But that's what we're doing there. Central Ontario, their symposium was in May. I went, my technicians went, all of my technicians went. We just, we're a small company, so I get to close the company and we all go, right? It's a good place to really sit and talk about different things. Monthly meetings include micro presentations in Central Ontario, things that people say they're interested in, so it does draw. Maybe an idea for chapters would be to do more of these things online, so if the topic really drew them in, everybody could join. Southwestern Ontario, they're doing the micro presentations as well, and they're going to be doing a fall event, and they just finished supporting CFAA at the OMF POA. Throat's going dry. There, got it. Okay. Eastern Ontario, Ottawa, Rob's here. Monthly meetings, again, micro presentations. So that's, right? That's that key word I was talking about before, education. Education, education, education. And planning for fall technical seminar event, and they support the CFAA participation, again, at the OMF POA. Thank you. Manitoba, monthly meetings, planning for the fall technical seminar. I've been to Winnipeg a few times, and we treat it a little bit like getting out, like going to a vacation day, but training is good. Again, I always look forward to going to Winnipeg and being part of that. Good trainers are definitely in need across the country, right? And I'll put this out. One of the things we're looking for is a director of education, so that they can help to coordinate trainers and people to do content across the country. That's still an open position. Saskatchewan established a new practical exam test location in Regina. I'll talk a little bit about a practical exam later on, I'm sure. These are our committees, strategic planning, and you can read what that's about, and I think it might be self-evident. Governance, again, that the governance and the policy, that the complaints policy has really, in the discipline, has taken form, and it continues to change. I think we were talking about technicians who wanted to go on leave for pregnancy the last time, and we said, oh, we hadn't thought about that yet. And then, should it be just for the mother-to-be, or should it be also for the husband? Because in a lot of places and so my point is, I think some really forward thinking is going into all of these documents. Codes and standards, the codes and standards are always changing. Things are moving, and it's a little bit like tennis sometimes, right? It's like, what standard are you on? And the ball goes that way, and they say, yeah, but then this standard has to change, and the ball goes that way. So we have a group that's working on that and following that. And certainly, marketing committee, where would we be without the website, the phase 2 enhancements, which we're talking about, and the journal. I hope the journal goes out and the people read it. To be honest, the paper version, I didn't read it as much, but I do have access with my phone and my computer, and I can look at the electronic version. So again, progress and things that are changing to make it more available for us all. Education committee, let's see, they've been working on, or at least hybrid technical seminars, a new practical exam, we'll come back to that in a second, and developing changes to simplify the CE. A lot of technicians have given us the feedback that the CE credits, and certainly we've already gone at least one step to make it a little more obtainable. Technicians are pretty busy. They're running in different directions, and to be able to manage all their paperwork and be able to figure out what category it goes in, and while we're getting some at head office, some reports of training, it's like, yeah, but this has nothing to do with what we do, right? It's like, not just any training, it would be good if it was pertinent to what we do one way or another. And so that had to be developed, and it's still in the process. And we're also looking at being able to work on maybe simplifying from 8, I guess it's 7, moving from 7 to possibly 2, and then it makes it a little easier for technicians to be able to divide that. Membership and revitalization, none of us would be here without that group. They help to vote in new members, and let's see so they've done a lot of work between chapters and committees. They've developed a new board of directors application process, and they've balanced between, the board. I remember there was a lot of discussion about the board being 40 people, and how do you get 40 people to agree, right? Well, breaking it into committees, and then a committee then brings it to the board, and they say, well, maybe we don't all agree, but we voted this is the best way to do it as a group, and then they can bring that to the board, and then the board can do some strategic thinking about that, and then being able to bring it forward. And so a lot of that starts because membership and revitalization took that challenge on to say, how can our board work the best? We're still working on it, but it's working pretty good. Industry affairs. Wow, there's a lot here, but certainly we want to look and continue to strengthen our relationships. We've led a task force consisting of governance, education, technician, industry affairs committees, and create a position statement for on CFAA and who they deem to be properly trained. So we're getting people from Alberta saying, you know, what's the difference between a trainee, and in Manitoba it's something similar. But as we're sort of looking at what they're sort of how they size that up, we're looking at maybe a commonality that we can approach across the whole country. So some of that is starting to come, you know, and the discussions are starting to happen, but it's important that they do. Co-hosting the inaugural Canadian Fire Protection Engineering Summit. It's coming up October 23. You got the date. We've been assisting in the renewal of provincial chapters, BC and Atlantic, and they have representation here, so that's awesome. And of course, strategic planning really hit, and Jordan is going to come up and give you much more of a report on that, and hopefully you'll get a sense for where we're going from that as well, because it looks like we've said, okay, this is all really important stuff, and we're going to move in that direction. And then, of course, there was a golf tournament yesterday, which I'm told fit any good Scottish golfer. Right? The rain was over, I think, before you started, though, right? No? It's still drizzling? All right. Well, I couldn't make it. I was busy on a service call. I'm still an active technician out there fixing things, helping people in my crew. But I did drop in later on. It was good to see so many people, you know, they weathered the storm, right? And they got through it. But certainly, you know, getting people together in that kind of a environment also could help. And I think Manitoba might be coming with one. Is that raised eyebrows yes, or is that, you don't know about it? Okay, all right. August 26th, good. And then, of course, they participated in industries affairs, that is, in OMF, POA, AFAA, NFPA, et cetera. And anywhere we try and get involved, that's industry affairs. The technician committee, you know, yes, I'm a technician, but when I used to go as the chapter president and involved, and I would go to the OMF, POA events. You'd stand in front of a fire inspector and they'd say, you know, what's going on with these technicians, right? And then the technicians would come by and they'd say, well, what's happened with you guys? So fire alarm technicians at the time just wanted to be recognized. You see, when you come in as a recognized technician, it means maybe you took 5 courses, now you did a theory and a practical exam. But any technician who's been around for a while knows how much those guys know, or girls, right? That's just the tip of the iceberg. And so going forward, it's about developing this program that looks for the behaviors that we want to really support. And I'll just talk a little bit about it very briefly. The idea is that chapters and member companies in their vicinity will look for technicians who deserve an attaboy, right? Or I guess attagirl too. And then they can submit it to the chapter. The local chapter then will vote on who, you know, out of the nominations they choose, and then they'll give them an award, right? And all of this is yet to come through the system. The board has already voted on it, and now we're looking at, okay, where do the legs go? And as we sort of put the legs in the right place, watch for this coming down the pipe, right? It's a little bit extra work for the chapters, but I think the chapters will get a lot of, you know, pleasure out of doing that and being able to recognize technicians. Technicians are out there. They're, you know, the front fire inspectors want them to do their job right. We want them to communicate properly. Of course, we want them to do it in a timely manner, right? There's a lot of pressure on technicians. And oh yeah, and the customer wants them to do it silently, which isn't happening, right? So there's a lot in there, and that's on technicians. And then membership and revitalization. They're managing the board, the nominations, and I've talked, I guess, a little bit about this already. And then apply member retention strategies. The biggest one probably coming is going to be, I'm probably on the backside of what we would call the, what's that generation? Right? Just forgot, right? Anyway, so I probably in the last wave of the baby boomers. And now we need to look at how to get other people engaged. And I'm really happy to say that a lot of the new technicians we have coming in really care. They really care. Not that we didn't, but it's good to say that that's going to keep going. So that's great. Again, that comes through membership and revitalization. Apply member to a good, and really, I guess it's retention. And then new member recruitment is something we're all interested in. So now CFAA is getting a lot more involved in that type of thing. And of course, expanded member benefits. Phase 2 enhancements. So the Phase 2 enhancements include some things that will really make the website better. The technicians can upload their stuff now, right? That was a big deal because if you had to go find a fax machine and send it, well, wow, that sounds so archaic now, doesn't it? But it wasn't that long ago. That's how things got sent in. So you can throw it through a scanner, you can take pictures of it with your phone, upload it, or if it's from the CFAA, we'll send you documentation of your training, then it goes in and you can upload it. And then the renewal process should be a lot easier, right? It'll just go through a lot better. So some of that stuff, including integration maybe with some of our online partners, will start to happen. And again, the idea is whatever we can do on the website to make things better, we're working on it. Not all at once, but we are working on it. Codes and standards, government layout. So let's see what I want to read out of this one. There's some codes out there that are being reviewed right now, and it's out for public review. Things like adoption of the 2020 National Building and Fire National Building Fire Codes, advocacy on provincial building and fire code harmonization, and adoption of latest standards, and of course qualifications for technicians. And there's a concept in some provinces that you have to be an engineer to do a verification, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. What is a bad thing is in some places where you have no qualifications to do a verification. And so that's part of what we're looking at there. And I think my next slides start to go through all the ULC standards that could change, that might change, that we're involved in. And that's quite a few standards. Is there only 3? All right. So, any questions for me? No questions. Questions online? All right. Good. Then I'm turning over the lectern as soon as I can see it to Jordan. So Jordan, if you want to welcome Jordan, we are 10 minutes ahead. And please help me welcome Jordan from Strategic Planning and also our VP.
You better take this so I don't get the wrong one. John didn't mention it, but he's a new father. Congratulations to John. And I know that's not contagious, but I didn't want to take any chances. I don't want any part of that. All right. Welcome, everybody. My name is Jordan Klemick, the chair of the Strategic Planning Committee. So I just wanted today to take some time and go over kind of what we've been doing this past year, and what we're working on for the future. So, not in... on January 31st, as many people as we could get from the board of directors had a session with Dr. David Weiss. He's a consultant that specializes in strategic planning. So he guided us through a process where we As a board, we talked about and identified kind of what our challenges are, what our weaknesses and threats are as an organization. Through that kind of process, we identified what opportunities we have and what strengths we have. And the goal of the process, I guess, was to develop a one-page strategy document that will kind of guide us as a committee and an organization going forward. We also discussed how, as a board, we can resolve complex issues, how we set strategic priorities, and kind of how we work through a process to achieve those strategic objectives that we identify. Following our session with David Weiss, we met in the afternoon just as a board and had a lot of open discussion about I'll get to in the one-page document, I can kind of better go through what we identified as our goals and that kind of thing. But in identifying our outline, we went through, like as I said, and identified our external threats. Our mission statement and vision statements were already part of our existing documents we had. We didn't develop that. And then we talked about what strategic outcomes we want to see as an association over the next 5 years. The external threats we identified, a big one for us is that we don't have a sufficient technician workforce. Anybody who works in the industry or works for a service company knows that finding good qualified technicians is always a challenge. And while for an individual company it might work to try to get technicians from other companies and steal technicians, if you will, for an association as a whole, we really need to look at how do we get more people interested in, involved in the industry and becoming new technicians. So that's definitely a challenge going forward. The perception of value of the CFA program, that really touches on a couple things. For our technicians, we went through a process a couple years ago where we tried to get feedback from different stakeholder groups in our committee. We talked to people from building owner associations, we talked to people from AHJs, we talked to technicians, we talked to service companies, really anybody we could to try to get a feel for what our customers or our stakeholders feel are challenges we should be looking at. And one of the things that for technicians, there's perception that our continuing education maybe isn't required or the courses aren't good enough, that we get comments that people feel it's a cash grab. I think for some, maybe they don't see the value in the courses, but they really are key for us to have that credibility as an association and for what we're teaching. And that the program not being recognized across Canada. So it's obviously a goal of ours to have the requirement for CFAA registered fire alarm technicians as a requirement in all the provinces across Canada to kind of be that standard for what's recognized as proper training for a fire alarm technician. And we're not there yet, so that's a threat. Our mission and vision statements, I won't read those. They're, like I said, they're not new. They are on our one-page strategy document, but they were developed some time ago. And I think especially the mission statement, you've probably heard quite a bit. So this was the one-page document. Oh, sorry. Yep. It's missing some stuff, but this is basically the most of what our one-page document is. So it identifies our strategic outcomes, and there's 5 of them. So the first one being to gain national recognition for CFAA program and technicians. I do have other slides that kind of go through this as well, so I won't get too much into them, but just kind of the bullet points. There's a program that I'll talk about more to gain recognition for our program or certification for that. We've talked about development of a tiered education program and engaging outside industry stakeholders such as AHJs, building owners, and managers, insurance companies. Gaining recognition not just for our technician program, but our training program, our education program, and widening the scope of who that would benefit to those other stakeholders. Developing a technician workforce to meet industry needs. As I mentioned, it's a common problem across the country in the industry. So there's some strategies there that we identified to work on, including engaging educators and other industry stakeholders to promote careers in the fire alarm technician. As a fire alarm technician, and this would be to not people who are already maybe in related industries, but to people at a younger age that are maybe still in school, to try to educate people and inform them that this is a viable career, that's something most people don't know about, but that it is a good career path. And just ongoingly evaluate the long-term workforce needs in the industry. Third one there, become the primary source for fire alarm industry education. So we want to improve our core courses and develop a robust online bilingual education program. So just have a better program, more courses available, and be able to have more access to training courses online. Improve our ability to educate other industry stakeholders. So again, if we're talking about people like building owners and managers, AHJs, and so on, and work on a 5-year plan to what we need to do to reach our education goals. John touched on it a bit as well, to expand the CFAA scope to other fire and life safety equipment, especially in some areas. I know in many areas, many companies do more than just fire alarm, whether it's inspecting fire extinguishers, emergency lighting, some of those other things that our people are out there doing anyway, to develop a course that gives them some kind of training, or something flying around my head. So they've got some kind of certificate that they've been trained to work on that equipment or those systems. And improve the value of our program in areas that require additional training on life safety equipment. So there's places like BC where they have I guess a competing organization, ASTTBC, who has programs that offer training in some of those other systems. And for us as the CFA, is something we're lacking there. So there are areas of the country that would be a great benefit to them. The last one here I'll touch on a little bit later as well. It was identified not so much as a strategy like the rest, but the consultant called it a capability strategy. So it was where, as an organization, we identify what our challenges might be in reaching those goals, and to identify what we need to do to make sure that we as an organization are capable of reaching them. So again, I'll talk about it more, but continuing evaluating our internal workforce to make sure it meets the needs of what we need to accomplish, be able to engage outside resources when necessary, and working on our website so that it does what we need it to do. So this, although it's not the actual one-page document, is kind of a summary of what's on there. So I mentioned the technician recognition. We, again, voice of the customer kind of thing, talking to our technicians, we get a lot of feedback that they don't feel they're properly recognized for the work that they do. And I mean it in a couple different ways. For some, it's related to pay, or recognition within the industry that, hey, I've taken this training, I've got a lot of experience. And one thing that we're looking at is a program through the Standards Council of Canada. They have a program where an organization or association such as ours can become certified or recognized to be able to certify individuals. So we're looking at this program whereby going through the process, if we're successful and complete this program, we would be able to basically offer a license to a technician. And we feel that would be helpful in a number of areas. One, when our technician base is telling us that they want some kind of professional designation for what they do, this would accomplish that. And also in the workforce development part of it, where young people are looking for a career, if they look at something like getting a license to do something, and that our program is recognized by an organization like SCC, that lends credibility to what they do and makes that career path more attractive. So where we're at with this now, we have met with a consultant who is very experienced with this SCC programs, and our board has approved to kind of go down the road of working with him to evaluate where we are now, kind of an exploratory review of, with his familiarity with the SCC programs, where we're at now, what we would have to improve upon or develop to be able to meet those criteria. And based on what he has to tell us, make a more educated decision on how we move forward. So that process has kind of just begun. We had some very preliminary meetings with that consultant last month. Development of technician workforce. So I kind of talked about that we know that's a problem, and we know we have some work to do to get people interested in the industry, educate people on the industry, and how many people in this room have been or are a technician? Quite a few. How many of you before heard about a career as a fire alarm technician and thought, that sounds really good, that's what I want to do? Not one. So that kind of makes a point of what I've always noticed talking to people, that most people who are a fire alarm technician came into it by chance. Somebody they knew to. For me, I was fixing vacuum cleaners and I needed to do something different and got a job recharging fire extinguishers, which led to becoming a fire alarm technician, and a career kind of went from there. And a lot of people have, similar kind of stories, obviously. So there aren't enough people who hear about a career as a fire alarm technician and pursue that, I guess, is what the problem is. So we need to try to engage people, educate at a younger age, inform people, let them know that this is a good career option, educate them on how they can get on that career path, make sure the courses and education is available, and support that. How do we do it? That's the challenge.
Would you like some ideas now or at the end of your presentation?
At the end. Sure. Yeah, you bet. So some of the things we've done, starting, I would say, about a year and a half or so ago, 2 years ago, we started talking to a company called Edge Factor. So we finished kind of within the last year, completing a series of 9 videos where Edge Factor is a company that has a video platform where they have career profiles, information on different careers that are available to school districts. So their platform is available to all kinds of students in high school and earlier, so that if they want to look at careers and find out more about them, learn how to get into those, they can search and find things that interest them. So we completed a series of 9 videos, filmed them last April, and I think we had them out June, July, yeah. So they are in the Edge Factor platform. They're also on our YouTube channel, through our social media platforms and so on. I like to think they're going to help with that. And also just, like I said, through the CFAA's use, we can use them to promote that career as well. Other ideas we are looking at and, open to more. We've had some very early talks on how some kind of virtual career fair might work. How we can, challenging thing there is how do you find the audience to engage? Who is that group, or, schools or people in college, whatever it might be? How do you connect with those people and meet and talk with them? So always challenges there. Just I'm from Regina, Saskatchewan. I was at a open house for a high school my son was looking to go to, talking to a teacher in an electrical program, and they had a room where they teach people how to wire circuits and stuff, and then a piece of plywood with a pull station and a transformer and a bell. So we were just kind of talking about fire alarm, and just with this guy, I asked about, what if an association was willing to put a small fire alarm system in, you could teach kids about fire alarm systems, have somebody from a chapter come in once a semester and meet with students and talk to them about fire alarm systems. So we're going to give it a try, I think, in Regina, see how it goes, and if there's things we learn, and if it's successful at all, maybe we can work on something like that. But this will be an ongoing process for sure that will be open to ideas. Becoming a primary source of fire alarm industry education. We do have a fairly big education program, but we can always improve. I think for the core stuff like continuing education, we want to continuously be developing new courses, because when people got to take them every year or 2 years, you want to make sure that there's always new content so that people aren't taking the same things. So we're always looking at ways to develop education content that way. But like I said before, we also have other industry stakeholders that I think would like to come to us for information. So like I said, we've done AHJ training for years now, but the method of delivery, if you will, of having to have AHJs leave their work for 2 days, 3 days to come and sit in a classroom is hard. So there's probably things we could improve that way. Building owners and managers, we would love to be able to tell building owners and managers, here, take this course so you know when you're looking at a fire alarm inspection report what you should be looking for, what you should be looking for when that technician's walking around your building. There's lots of things we could improve on and develop that way. And again, to become a good source of education. Expanding our scope. I mentioned fire extinguishers and emergency lighting. This is ideas, not by any means, what we're doing, but, we've talked about, is there education that should happen with respect to integrated systems testing or sprinkler systems or so on. This was the capability strategy I talked about. So we can set lofty goals, but we have to make sure we're equipped to execute on those. So we have to be kind of aware of what our limitations are and how we could overcome those. So the evaluation of internal workforce, the ladies in our office, I know they're here somewhere, maybe not in the room, but probably within earshot. I know they work very hard. They do a lot, and we have to be aware that we can't just keep asking more and more. That we have to make sure we're properly staffed, and not just properly staffed in numbers, but properly staffed in the skill sets that people need to do the work that we're asking of them. So this is an evaluation we need to make as we move forward and try to do more. In saying that, I know we'll come across situations where having somebody on staff with the proper skill set just isn't an option. So in times when we need to engage a consultant or lobbyist or whatever it might be, we have to be willing to look at those options and do that. And even for education, it may involve things like issuing RFPs to get work done. And improving our online resources. Of course, as time goes by, things are done more electronically. That's going to involve a lot of integration with our website, which needs work. So we know that's something we need to work on, is to make life easier for the people within the association to get things done through our website and other digital means. Projects. For a couple of years now, we've been working on a virtual reality practical exam. It is 80% done, and I think we're at the point where we need to kind of have education committee look at it and see where it goes from here. I have seen a demonstration of it, and I think it's going to be a fantastic tool. I've done some invigilation of practical exams myself, and while it's great to have labs across the country, there's a definite fit for something like this to fill a need. And that is it. So, questions? I'll start here. Did we have a mic that can go around? I see Mike Hughes in the building. You could give the mic to Mike, and he could be the roving Mike? No? He passed. Mike Hugh. He didn't want to do it.
Yes, that's fine. My name is Colin Rainsbury. I'm with Galaxy Fire Protection.
Okay.
We've been involved with the CFA since our company started 20 years ago.
That's great.
And we used to advertise on the website for people, and we used to get great responses. Probably like many other companies, you advertise now and you get nothing. I've been a volunteer all my life, and recently I worked with the Volunteer Bureau in Toronto. Now I know Toronto is not the center of the universe, but one program which they developed to get people being involved as volunteers was to go to career fairs. And there are literally hundreds of these a year. One of the advantages of that is you get to see a cross-section of people. And many immigrants who've come to this country who are not familiar with the career of being a fire alarm technician. Now, I know you mentioned the question of resources. To go to these career fairs, we recruited volunteers. And I'm suggesting that perhaps CFAA should look at recruiting a team of volunteers who are prepared to attend these events as they come up. It may take half a day, it may take an hour for a presentation, it may be sitting with a table. You do need some resources like promotional materials and be able to set up a portable booth, because kids come around, young people, and they come around and you're able to talk to them about the potential of the fire technician program. So I'm just putting this forward. Certainly as an active member of a fire alarm protection company, I would have been prepared to go and, if invited, to one of these things. So I'm just putting this out as a possible idea, and certainly I'd be happy to not act as an advisor, but give some ideas on how we go about to find how to get on the list of all these career days that happen across the city.
That's a good idea. I believe we have looked at career fairs before, and I think that would be a good activity for probably chapters to be involved in, because obviously we're not just looking for people to get interested in the industry and in the GTA. It's across the country. So having chapters across the country would be a good thing to talk about at the chapter level as well. And I'm sure something could probably happen at this head office to have the material to support that.
Yes, that's the thing. You do need something very simple that you can hand out that they'll take and they'll think about, and they know how to find how to get involved, what courses are available at the college level, etc., etc.
Yes.
Just an idea.
That's good. Yes, I appreciate that. Thank you.
We have another question here in the back. I just wanted to add to that comment. So we have been doing career fairs. Love to understand what other ones you'd like us to go to, but I would say we hit career fairs for people that are probably already in the working class, and maybe we need to start younger. I don't know if that's what you're getting at. Okay. Okay, thank you.
Ralph Coco Potter.
Hi, Ralph.
Hi. Is your committee looking at board members? Like when I look at the list, and I hope we all live 100 years, I see a lot of board members that are only a few years away from retirement. Are we looking at the next generation to pass the baton to?
Within the board?
Within the industry.
Yes, yeah, for sure. So I would, I guess, answer that question. I sit on Al Hess's Revitalization and Membership Committee, and it's something that certainly, like within the CFA and the board that we talk about, is that we're very aware that, especially like board members in that, like some of them are reaching, like you said, close to retirement age, and that as slots become open, we are looking to fill those with people coming up in the industry who want to become involved, and we don't ask for age, but it's something we're aware of, yeah.
Yeah, if you look at the list and, the question is, who's the youngest board member? I don't even know the answer to that.
It's me.
Yeah, well, there you go.
And on that note, I would like to say, just while I'm up here and I have the chance and revitalization of membership came up, Alan Hess is stepping down. And I would personally like to thank Al a lot for having sit on that committee, for the hard work he's done. I think he's been a great resource, great mentor. And I'd like to thank you a lot, and we'll miss you.
Thank you very much. Mike Lewis, Fire Marshal for the province of New Brunswick. Much like what you said earlier there, nobody looks at the parade of fire trucks when they're young and goes, I want to be the guy in the back writing fire marshal's orders, or the guy inspecting the fire panel. So I think one of the things, and we're seeing this across all of the technical disciplines, we're seeing on the sprinkler side, we're seeing on the building inspector side, we're seeing on the fire inspector side, everybody is challenged to find these skilled people. And one of the transitions that we've had to very good success in New Brunswick is changing from a post-service training program to a pre-service training program. So, and maybe this is an assumption, but your training curriculum is available to members, correct? You have to be a member to obtain it?
No, so the technician training program, anybody can just enroll, register for the courses, and it's like after the fact, after you've gone through the 5 courses and the theory and practical exam and so on, that you become not a member, but a registered technician.
Has there been a thought to partnering with academic institutions to offer that as part of their curriculum?
We do, with a number of colleges that offer our program, mostly, around here.
As part of like a pre-service thing, so you can graduate and walk out with that designation and begin working in the industry prior to arrival?
Yeah, we have a...
Okay.
You could talk to Scott Pugsley back there. And Randy.
Perfect. Only reason I say that is that we're doing it in New Brunswick with building inspections and fire inspections, and we're interested in other opportunities like that. What's another add-on you can have from a pre-service perspective to allow these people to integrate into the industry faster from a job perspective? So I guess less of a comment and a thank you then.
Good.
I just wanted to add on to that because I know the numbers. So we have 20 education partners across Canada. The majority of them, as Jordan said, are in Ontario. We don't have any in Atlantic Canada. We're really trying hard. And the chapters help to work on it as well. So that's a hole or a gap that we see. But we do have them in every other province, and no territories to the north yet either. So.
We need to teach that technician trucks are just as cool as big, red, shiny trucks.
It's true.
And they're cheaper. Ladders
And
are
I
smaller.
will say there are no fire alarm technician calendars. Just, there's no market. I tried to start one, but
I
my
think
wife wouldn't even buy it.
With Jordan's committee, though, that's something we try to get to, is that people think of this first and then say pre-service. But if I look at some of the other educators in the room, what happens is pre-service happens, and then we say, hey, come to this technicians program, because you can do that while you're looking for a job as a firefighter, right? If we could switch it and say, absolutely, yeah.
Got one over here, Jordan.
Is there any possibility to train the technician for practically, like conducting a workshop? Because most of the technicians, we complete the courses, 5 courses, and until we attend the practical exam, we may not know about the verification process, because we just working in just a monthly inspections and annual inspection. But in practical exam, during verification, the testing procedure is something different from what we're doing in annual, right?
Yeah, so I guess the practical exam is what we have in place now. It used to be, that you were to kind of put in a certain number of hours of experience. I think the expectation is that when you finish your 5 courses and your theory exam, that you do need practical experience in the field before you go and challenge the practical exam. And and are registered to go to work. And I guess that's up to, if you're working as a junior technician helper, that getting the support of your company to get you the hands-on kind of experience that you will need or should have to challenge that practical. So if you're wondering about the CFAA putting on workshops that would help you to get that kind of hands-on experience?
Yes, like to show the trainees like how the troubleshooting is, how the verification. Even most of the technicians, they didn't look the testing equipments of the verification, because to test the sensitivity, we need to use the sensitivity tester.
Right.
So not all the companies doing verification process.
Yeah, no, I recognize that. I can't say that we've. Yeah.
One last comment, and I can try and get you back.
Okay. I think Simon at the back there had a question. Oh, sorry. Mark Wilson.
Over here. So one thing that I've been thinking about quite a bit, because obviously, as you said, anybody who's working in this industry trying to hire someone, this is the main issue, I think. So prior to me being in this industry, I was an electrician. The way I got, through my apprenticeship was through a co-op program. And so I'm from Fort McMurray originally, back in the early 2000s, huge boom happening. Getting tradespeople was a huge problem for the companies up there. So essentially what they did was created this community cooperative program that would indenture you, and then you got to go work at the companies who were involved with this program for, maybe you did your first year with company A, your second year with company B, third year with company C, and then in that third year, any of those companies could offer you full-time employment. So it was a way for the companies to kind of get a trial, with the employee, and it was a way for the student or the trainee or apprentice to gain experience from various different companies and doing various different types of, in my case, electrical work. So I think it's something that could be beneficial for us as well if our member companies were interested in that type of thing, that, the CFAA could be the administrator of that program. And then it's a little bit easier for new people who are green, don't have any experience or any ties to the industry to wade into it, have employment opportunities, and see that path forward, rather than I'm going to go do the 5 courses, now I've got that done, but now I still have to go get hired by someone, and I don't know who a good company or a bad company, or it's a complicated process. So I think something like that could potentially help attract more people and just make that road a little bit easier. And it's a benefit to the member companies.
Right.
So yeah, I just want to add to the comment that John mentioned earlier about what we're doing in Quebec. So we're trying to create a college certificate that is only for training fire alarm technicians. So not to install fire alarm system, or because we have a lot of people coming out of that kind of courses of training, and we want it will be something like 7-month courses where they will learn what is the logical behind a fire alarm system programming, what's how to analyze or read the drawings when you are bidding on a job or doing a verification on the fire alarm system. So it's that kind of stuff, and we want to include the CC1 to CC5 in it. So because we realize that, like Jordan mentioned, people that are coming in as a fire alarm technician get there by chance or accident, or I don't know what it is. So we cannot create our own labors, and I think that is what we are working for, because in Quebec it's a big issue like everywhere else. So I just want to add to that we're working on something, trying to develop our own technician base for our industry.
Right, thanks, Simone. I guess that's it. So I will turn this back over to John. Thank you.
Slipped away. All right, so next I'm going to, and thanks for all of your energy around the strategy, and you know, you can maybe get involved at the chapter level, and board of director members can be part of the strategic planning committee, and certainly we're always looking for those ideas and to get that information in the hands of the people that are laying out, you know, the people with the rubber on the road, as they say. So next, we're going to call on our financial auditor's report. Aaron Riley, are you there?
I am here. Thanks for the intro, John. Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you.
Okay, great. So my understanding is that everyone's been provided a copy of the financial statements. What I will do is I'll just start on the first page of our report, which is the independent auditor's report. And I just want to just preface this discussion by giving you a sense of what my role here is. So we're the financial auditors of Canadian Fire Alarm Association, and I'm here to walk you through the report and help you understand it. It's not my responsibility to comment on matters of governance or management. That would be something I would probably pass on to Lindsay Banks, the treasurer, if there's comments related to that. But ultimately, I'm here to kind of help walk you through our financial statement and report and give you some confidence that the numbers that you're looking at are accurate and accurately reflect the financial performance of CFAA. So starting on page 1 of the independent auditor's report, we just at the top here give our opinion, which is that we've audited the financial statements, and it is our opinion that the financial statements present fairly in all material respects the financial position of the association as at December 31st, 2022. To expand on that a little bit further, it goes on to say that this audit was done in accordance with Canadian generally accepted auditing standards, and there's further detail on what our responsibilities entail as auditors in the second page of this report, which I won't get into. We also go on to further just explain that the responsibilities of management are that we're relying on their representation for a large part of our audit. And just while I'm touching on this report as well, I just want to make everyone aware that as auditors, there's always 2 primary risks that we're looking for. In this case, the first one is revenue recognition, to make sure that the revenue is shown accurately, and to mitigate this risk, we do audit procedures, including a review of the policy and substantive testing of the revenue accounts. The other big item that we look for is management override. And to mitigate this risk, we do a number of procedures such as journal entry testing, a review of estimates, substantive testing of expenses, and we do some additional targeted tests to focus on certain areas. So that hopefully gives you a little bit of a background as far as how we're proceeding with the audit. And I will now bring your attention to page 3, which is the statement of financial position. So this is the balance sheet. I'll just touch on a few items of note, which I think other people have, including Troy, have already touched on. But the cash at the end of the year was $376,000, which is down considerably from 2021. Now, the main reason Why it would be down is because I think a lot of it was shifted into term deposits, a little lower there, and you can see term deposits as it stands are $935,000, which is up from almost $400,000 from the prior year. Going back to accounts receivable, there's a slight increase there as well, which is not out of the ordinary given there was a slight increase to revenues during the year. And the only other item, asset of note, that we will look at a little bit further is that there's an increase to office equipment, leaseholds, and intangible assets. So we have a note on that, which I'll just get into briefly in a few moments. As far as liabilities, there's just standard accounts payable and accrued liabilities, which includes government remittances. And then there's always a portion of technician and membership fees that have been collected in advance of the fiscal year in which they relate to. So there's a portion of that that gets deferred annually, which can fluctuate slightly with timing. If you can flip to page 4 of the financial statements, that's the statement of operations. So we start with revenues here, and things are largely consistent with a few increases here and there. Similarly, the expenses were largely consistent, although most of the deltas or major changes here I think are mostly attributable to the fact that there's continued increased return to in-person activities. So seminar fees would be up. Some of the supporting expenses as well, such as the annual general meeting, we can see that expenses up because that's happening in person again. And there's a few other expenses as well that have increased, primarily just because things can happen in person again. So for the year, in summary, there was an excess of revenues over expenses of $232,000, which is down a little bit from last year just because of some of these expenses increasing. And that on the subsequent page, page 5, that excess of revenue over expenses continues to accumulate to an ending unrestricted fund balance of about $1.4 million, which is essentially a reflection of the total assets minus the total liabilities of the CFAA. The only other item that I'll bring your attention to is if you flip to page 8 and specifically note 2, it goes into break down the office equipment, leaseholds, and intangible assets. And you'll note there that the virtual exams of $48,000, that continues to be unamortized because I believe Jordan alluded to the fact that that is not in use yet. So that will begin to get amortized, reducing the excess of revenues over expenses once that program begins. You can also see that the website there is now up to a cost of $292,000, as there is continuing ongoing investment in that project. And some of the website is in use, some of it that has been invested in. So we are amortizing that on an annual basis based on the fact that it's in use. Further on the financial statements, there is a breakdown of term deposits and accounts payable. There's a commitments note on page 10, which documents the lease agreements that the association has for its office premises, which expires in 2026. And those are the main financial highlights I wanted to touch on today. we've had our communication with the board, and we've received a signed letter of representation from management, so the financial statements are effectively complete at this point. The final step for us will just be completing a non-for-profit information return, which will be done in coming weeks. And ultimately, what we've done here is we've done an audit, which is the highest level of assurance we as chartered professional accountants can do. And if there's any further questions or detail or guidance needed on that, I'm happy to answer any questions anyone may have. I don't have any audio myself at the moment. Oh, there we go.
We have audio here. No
I
questions
can hear you
from
now.
here. Yep. Okay, no questions in the room. Anybody online? No, nobody online. All right. Then, thanks. Do we need a motion to accept anything from Aaron? Aaron's, no, good. All right. Then, thank you very much, Aaron.
Thanks very much. We appreciate the opportunity to continue to be of service to CFAA.
Thank you. Good, he's good. Perfect. And we're getting closer to being back on time. So we do have a motion, and the motion is to approve the reappointment of Riley Bach, LLP, as our financial auditor of the Canadian next meeting in 2024. So this is a motion. You can use your phone to use the QR. If you're a voting member, remember, if you're not supposed to vote and you do vote, we will find your car. Thank you, everybody. And next, I'm going to call on Suzanne for the presentation of the Student Scholarship Awards. Suzanne? You can clap.
Thank you, John. Well, thank you all for being here. It's nice to see a full house. So this is one of my favorite jobs to do, is to give out deserving students scholarship awards. And this year is a very special year, not only because we're celebrating 50 years, but because we have 3 women winners, which we've never had in the history of the association. So it shows that more women are coming into our industry. It's still a very small percentage of the overall technician base that we have for registered technicians, but all of these deserving women students have excelled in their studies. So the first is, next slide would be the 2023 Richard Morris Memorial Fire Alarm Technician Scholarship. So this is presented to a top fire alarm technician student having completed a 2-year fire protection technician course at a recognized Canadian college with a grade point average minimum of 3.3 out of 4 in all of CFAA's 5 prescribed fire alarm technician courses, which includes fire alarm system overview, communications, basic electricity for the fire alarm technician, life safety system electronics, and fire alarm systems application. And I'm pleased to announce that Jibrilin Ruiz is the award winner. And we do have a video from Jibrilin. She was not able to join us today because she's actually at her graduation. So we could run the video. We have videos for all of the students, and I'm pleased to say the other 2 students are in the audience, but if we could run Jibrilin's video, please.
Good day to everyone. I am Jibrilin Ruiz, a registered nurse in the Philippines, and have worked as a fire officer in Bureau of Fire Protection, Philippines. I was assigned to different departments such as firefighting operations, emergency medical services, fire safety education, and fire safety inspection. Being able to have undergone a fire arson investigation and inspection course in the Philippines sparked my interest in fire safety because I believe that prevention is always better than cure. I have just graduated from my first safety system program at Fascio College and learned about the basic principle of basic fire system. Further, I underwent a mentorship program to apply the theories in life scenario, which helped me boost my confidence and prepare for my career pathway. My next plan after graduating is to become a certified fire alarm technician to apply my knowledge and skills in the fire alarm industry and to promote fire safety to the public. Lastly, I would like to take this opportunity to thank CFAA Richard Morris Scholarship Award for selecting me as your recipient. I will always be proud that I became part of this, and I will prove that I am worthy of this award.
So congratulations, Jabril, and she graduated from the Fanshawe Fire Protection Program. So our next award is the David Sylvester Memorial Fire Alarm Scholarship Award. And by the way, for those of you that don't know, I think most people know, though, all of these scholarship awards were named after some of the founding fathers, shall we say, of the association. So the David Sylvester Memorial Fire Alarm Scholarship Award is presented to a student who has excelled in the CFAA Fire Alarm Technology Program with exceptional grades, similar to those 5 courses that I mentioned before. And so the winner this year is Sabah Akhtar. So Sabah, would you like to stand up so we can recognize you? And Sabah, we have a video from you, so we'll roll the video. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. This is a huge honor for me to be receiving the David Sylvester Memorial Fire Alarm Award. He was such a great visionary, and his dedication, energy, and passion for the fire safety industry has me awestruck. It is an immense honor for me to share a few words about my passion in this industry. It began 4 years ago when I joined Direct Fire Protection System as a scheduler. I was always intrigued by the technicians' work in the field. This year, I was adamant that I want to be a technician and grow further. Just last week, I got an invaluable opportunity to attend the Vipon Fire Alarm Tech Boot Camp. These academic pursuits are helping me in understanding the industry inside out. Although there is no substitute for field experience, my studies are my foundational tools which are helping me to explore it with confidence. I thank God for providing me the direction to where I can build my career and do what I love by serving the community. I'm extremely blessed to have a supportive family who continue to provide me lots of love, care, and encouragement. I'm super blessed to have been mentored by the industry giants. Last, but certainly not the least, I'm grateful for my new fire alarm family, who without their support, I could not have started. A big thank you to Azim, who's my mentor and boss, Betty, Drew, and Randy, my college lifelines, my colleagues and fellow batchmates, Milad and Bobby, and to Wipon for providing me the environment to start the journey. I wish to learn and contribute like David and then take his work further. Thank you all for this opportunity and to share my passion and plans.
Congratulations, Sabah. And Jackie Jones will have your award for you afterwards. Thank you. And Sabah is a graduate, as she mentioned, from the Health and Safety Management College, one of our education partners. So the next award is the Jack Duggan Memorial Fire Alarm Technician Scholarship Award, also presented to a student who has excelled in the CFAA Fire Alarm Technician Program in all 5 prescribed fire alarm technician courses. And I mentioned before, fire alarm systems overview, communications, basic electricity for the fire alarm technician, life safety, system electronics, and fire alarm application. And we are pleased to present this award this year to Jessica Morano. Jessica, would you like to stand up, please? Thank you for being here. And so we have a video also from Jessica, if we could roll.
Hello there, my name is Jessica Morano, and I recently graduated Seneca College's Fire Protection Engineering Technology program. I wanted to express my sincere gratitude to the Canadian Fire Alarm Association for generously awarding me the Jack Duggan Fire Alarm Technician Award. Receiving such a prestigious award from such an esteemed organization is truly an honor. I have recently embarked on a Bachelor of Science degree in Fire Science and Emergency Management at the University of Cincinnati. Winning this award will provide invaluable support for my education and further fuel my unwavering passion for life safety. I'm deeply passionate about fire and life safety, recognizing the importance for a fully functioning fire alarm system. The CFAA has been at the forefront of supporting the fire alarm industry and its members for the past 50 years. As the organization reaches this significant milestone, I am thrilled to join the team and contribute to the CFAA's mission. Thank you.
Congratulations again, Jessica, and Jackie will have your award for you. So that concludes our awards. I say congratulations again to all three of these women. We're very proud of you.
I was going to say, Suzanne, you can call us to the break. It's a break now. So we'll come back. It says we're good till 3 o'clock. So assuming everything works, we'll come back in exactly at 3 o'clock, and we're off to break. Thank you. Okay, so one of the reasons that we have an AGM in the first place is to elect the next board. And who better than somebody who was the president when I really got involved at the chapter? And I'll tell you just something. So he did not write this introduction. Basically, what happens is if you don't write and give somebody an introduction, then they get to make it up. However, he definitely was our president when I got involved as a president of a chapter at the time. And I enjoyed working with Al, and you know, it's too bad now he's going to step down, but you know, I was told one day by somebody in Toastmasters, which is another organization I was involved with, sometimes you need to know when to get on the bus, and sometimes you need to get off the bus. So that said, please help me welcome Al. Hand you this officially.
Thanks, John. Thank you. Yeah, so John hands me the gavels. That's symbolic of the what we have to do as the first order of business is to ask the existing board of directors to step down. So we duly dissolve the existing board of directors, and I will chair and preside over the election process. A little bit of background on who we are. We're the Revitalization and Membership Committee, and amongst some of our many responsibilities, one is to prepare the slate, proposed slate for the membership to vote on today at the annual general meeting. The slate is, there's quite a bit of work involved. It's been mentioned by a few people. I think Ralph's comment is well taken, that we're thinking very much about, on the R&M committee, the Revitalization Member Committee, is looking at the face of the association, the face of our membership, and looking at the face of our board and say, does the face of the board look like the industry that we serve and the members of the industry? And so this is a difficult part because we want to always have diversity in terms of people who have been around for some time and provide a lot of experience to the industry. And at the same time, we want to be able to bring in new energy and new ideas. We want to, as Suzanne pointed out, we have increasingly number of females working in the field. I think we're doing pretty good on the board in terms of our representation. So we always want to try and create that diversity so that the board of directors looks like our membership. And the membership face is changing. So that's what we do in preparing the board ahead of time. See if I get a bit of surprise here on what's here. So the first step is to transfer the chair from John and move it over to myself for managing that. The board of directors stands down, and the nomination committee report is presented to the membership for review and voting. We actually provide that to the board, and the board in turn approves it for presentation here today. The way we present it is in its entirety. We don't elect on each position or vote on each position. We vote on the slate in its entirety. So this year, the slate that we have put in front of the membership today and motion positions, there's actually 6 people in 7 positions, if I've got that right. Normally, you can't hold 2 positions on the board. The one exception is past president, because the past president is actually appointed. It makes sense that it's somebody who would have done that. Of course, in that position, you only get 1 vote. But Lindsay was our past president a full term ago, before John came in. And Lindsay came in this past term as the treasurer. And we are proposing that Lindsay play the role of both treasurer and past president once again. So John returning as president, Jordan appropriately heading up the Revitalization and Membership Committee as our first vice president, second vice president Louis Tai, secretary Jeffrey Tondang, and of course I already mentioned Lindsay in 2 roles. The slate of directors, and I won't read them all to you, but this is the slate that we've proposed. The number is down a little bit. As it's been mentioned, we try every year to bring new people into the board where we can, and it's not always easy because the board is quite large. But we've had the luxury to bring a few people in this year that's new. I do want to mention that there was a link in the process that described how we review the board. It's very hard for us to bring new people in when we don't know them, and we strongly encourage people to become involved initially in either committee work or in chapter work. And through committee work and chapter work, we get to know individuals, we know what skills they bring and how they can help with the fabric of the diversity on the board, skill sets, et cetera. So this is the 21 positions for the directors at large. And then the last piece is the chapter representatives. The chapter representative topic is a bit complex. The chapters hold their own elections. And in the process of holding their own elections, one of the things we ask them to do is to select their candidate as a member representative for the board. But the representative's position has to be voted on by the membership here at the AGM. So we try and time the chapter elections such that we get the representative that they would ask to serve for the chapter and have that in advance of the closing of the period where the nominations are made. So this is the list. What can happen over the course of the year is if the timing of the chapter doesn't completely align with the AGM, someone may need to, if they're no longer qualifying, may need to step down over the course of the year. In our bylaw, there's a provision that allows the board to replace somebody when the position is open. So you can actually see on here we have, for instance, Newfoundland has a vacant position because we don't actually have a chapter there right now. If in the course of the year we did get a chapter, the board would have the authority to put somebody in that role temporarily until the AGM this time next year, if that makes sense. So this is our slate of chapter representatives. And that fully constitutes the the board of directors that the committee and the board is presenting as a motion for the membership here today. That is a motion on our behalf. I think the next one's a vote. It is. So the next one would come up here as a vote. Just before we do, I would just open the floor for any discussion, questions, or comments. Yes, sir?
I just want to share with you, Alan, that we had our election on May for Quebec, and I'm not the president anymore, so it will be Raphael Villeneuve, but I'm keeping the role until September.
Perfect.
So just want to clarify that aspect.
Absolutely. That's the way it should work. Thank you. Okay, so everybody's got their the motion here is from Jordan, and it's seconded by Louis. Both members in good standing, and this is not a board vote, this is a membership vote. So if you're a member of the association and you represent the organization that you're a member of, for voting purposes, you can vote or meet John in the parking lot. It's not the right barcode. Okay. Sure, give me the tough job. Which one's coming up?
It's still question 2.
Still question 2? Is it fair to motion on that question? Can they answer on that? It's worked? Someone's fixed it quickly? I'll give you a little longer just to try one more time. Maybe you got to close it and whoops. Did I do that? Oh, you guys are checking it. Okay, I'll let you do it. So are we looking at the results here for the membership vote or the previous vote? Thank you. Just have to read it. Thank you. So everybody got a chance to lock in there. And I see we have a 100% vote on it. So the motion is passed. Thank you. So with that, that's my short and duty. And I get to turn the gavel back over to John. Thank you.
That's where we always keep the gavel, right? All right. Let's just make sure. All right, so next we're going to have a keynote presentation Michael Lewis is the current Vice President of the Canadian Council of Fire Marshals and Fire Commissioners, in addition to his role as Fire Marshal, Building Code Administrator, and Director of Technical Inspection Services for the province of New Brunswick. He's overseeing a multidisciplinary team of nearly 100 technical inspection and safety staff. He is responsible for building code adoption, guidance for building inspectors, technical safety for electrical, plumbing, boiler and pressure vessel, elevator and lifts, septic systems, and their associated professionals. As fire marshal, he's responsible for fire plan review, fire prevention inspections, investigations, training, and support to the Greater New Brunswick Fire Service, including professionals in sprinkler and alarm disciplines. Since 2020, the Office of the Fire Marshal and Technical Inspections in New Brunswick have been merged, leading to greater cooperation between the professionals. He's been involved in these roles since 2014, and prior to that, he worked in a regulatory capacity in the mining sector in northern Quebec, Labrador, as a forest officer in British Columbia and Alberta. He lives in Fredericton with his own young family, looks forward to supporting our allied professionals in New Brunswick and across the country in keeping Canada safe. Put your hands together for Michael Lewis.
So, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for inviting me here today. Thank you for the introduction. I was really excited to be able to get a chance to speak to you guys today. This is a group that is relative new to me, but I think there's an immense potential that exists within your membership, not just within your current scope, but within the scope to the years to come. So with that, I've entitled my presentation, Looking Past the Code Book, a holistic approach to community-based fire prevention. And what we're going to talk about today, I'll give you a little preface on why I'm before you today. I'll introduce myself as well as the Council of Fire Marshals and Fire Commissioners. We'll talk about some of the trends that we're seeing at the national level, at the provincial level, and certainly at the municipal level as well. Codes and standards, and there's certain limitations that come with that. And then we'll talk about post-code considerations. It's something that us as an office that we've developed into considerably, and we're encouraging every allied fire prevention official to do the same. And opportunities, some of the opportunities that exist for myself, for yourself, for your membership. And then we'll talk about next steps. So as a preface, I'm sure you guys heard in the presentation there, I'm not a code professional. We have allied code professionals within our group that work with this, but I am not a code professional. Went to school for military history, and then I took forestry, majoring in forest fires in particular. So I'm not a code professional. I fell into this job, just like someone mentioned here earlier today. No one looks at the parade and is excited to see the fire marshal in the back. There's no career track for fire marshals. There's no career track necessarily for a lot of the professions that we deal with. But with that being said, initially I had some trepidation. What am I going to come to talk to you guys about? Am I going to sit up here and talk about a CAN ULC standard and how it applies to your work? No, because you know it better than I do. So what I wanted to talk about is what I see as an immense potential for every single public official, every single private individual, and every single member of our allied fire service community moving forward. And why are we here? Ultimately, we have a common goal. We have a common goal to protect Canadians and their property from fire. And I think there's more than one way to do that. Comme toujours, moi je suis bilingue en plus, donc si on a des questions ou des commentaires en français après la présentation, n'hésitez pas à les demander. So who are we? The Canadian Council of Fire Marshals and Fire Commissioners. We represent every province and territory in Canada, in addition to the Department of National Defence, and most recently we've added the Indigenous Fire Marshal Service as well. So across the country, sea to sea, we have a legislative mandate for every single corner of this country. And we just celebrated our 100-year anniversary 2 years ago. So at that point, there was only a few Canadian provinces. We've lasted a little bit longer than some provinces. And with that, we've grown considerably in terms of our experience. We're building on a long history of fire professionals. And what are our key focuses? Our key focuses are community practice. So this is within ourselves, from Canadian Fire Marshals, Fire Commissioners, having those allied professionals for reach back. Fire prevention, whether it's education, engineering, or enforcement, with an emphasis very much on the education for that piece. Firefighter safety and training. We're seeing new trends in firefighter safety. National fire and emergency reporting frameworks. For the first time, we're reporting fire incidents nationally. There's almost a 20-year gap when fire incident data across this country was not looked at nationally. It did not exist. Guidance for fire services providers, yourselves included. What guidance can we provide you guys as allied professionals to help you better serve your clients and help us in the end? And then ultimately to support fire and emergency-related research and development. And like I said, the R&D side is underrepresented right now. We don't spend a whole lot of our time being proactive. We're very reactive, but it's where we want to build. We want to be proactive with you, with your memberships, to achieve our common goals. And ultimately, what we're looking to do as a council is to lead innovation, assurance, and practices on fire safety and emergency resilience across Canada. That sounds great on a bumper sticker, but what does it look like in practice? And that's what we'll talk about. So who am I? This is what I was, I think, maybe a year ago. And you'll see that we'll revisit this slide at the end of the presentation on where I want us to be as an office of the Fire Marshal. So as Fire Marshal, on that side, we do inspection. We inspect between 5,000 and 8,000 public assembly and sleeping accommodations per year. That's out of a total building stock of about 300,000. So we're doing between 5,000 and 8,000 inspections a year based on really high-risk occupancies, hospitals, nursing homes, daycares, schools, that sort of thing. And in addition to that, we're doing between 400 and 500 plans review a year, so that's new sleeping accommodations and places of assembly that we're reviewing, and we're approving those. We do investigations, between 150 and 200 fire investigations a year, plus maybe another 200 from local assistance. And support, so support for firefighter training. So that's, in a nutshell, what the core aspects of what the Fire Marshal's Office in New Brunswick has been doing. I think there's some significant limitations with that, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But that's what we are now. Where are you guys now? And admittedly, most of this is taken from your website. You saw it on the slides a few minutes ago. You're helping fire professionals keep Canadians safer, and I love that. Promoting collaboration between fire alarm technicians, fire prevention officers, and property managers. Your mission, CFAA's mission, is to maximize the effectiveness of fire alarm systems and the protection of life and property in Canada. I like that, because you're not just saying, we're going to follow the fire code. You're not just saying, we're going to implement the code across Canada. You're not just saying, we're going to force Canadians to meet the code. You're really talking about the core intent statement of what that means, helping protect Canadians. And really, the work that you guys do, it touches every Canadian. In New Brunswick, when we're looking at places of sleeping accommodation and public assembly, the average New Brunswicker spends 3.5 hours per day in something that we inspect. Generally speaking, everything we inspect is something that's got a fire alarm system in it too. So the average New Brunswicker, the average Canadian, is probably spending 3, 4, 5 hours per day in something that you're directly responsible for. And that's going to change, obviously, between provinces, but people are spending a lot of their time in buildings with our life safety systems. So that's you guys now. So trends. Unfortunately, right now, we're seeing some negative trends on the fire side. We're seeing some stuff come out, particularly in the past 2 years, that are pretty concerning for us. It's bucking a trend that we've seen for almost 100 years. So for 100 and something years, we've been getting better and better at life safety. We've been doing it through education, for standards, for codes, for national building code. Everything we've been doing to date has been a positive trend. Right now, we're starting to see that slip in the past 2 years. And what we're seeing right now, as of today, as I'm speaking, 31% of our fires are occurring in residential dwellings, overwhelming majority of which detached residential dwellings have no fire alarm system, really have very basic fire and life safety systems in it, but they're representing 92% of our fatalities. There's two ways of looking at that. On the one side, yes, we're really good at the structures that have to have our life safety systems. If you have to have sprinklers, if you have to have non-combustible construction, if you have to have firewalls, we're really good at that. People are not dying there anymore. Where they're dying in their homes. They're dying in detached dwellings that we really don't have any involvement in. So that's where we're seeing the most significant trend. Really, the number of fires, interestingly enough, is fairly static year over year, maybe some slight variations. But the amount of people dying, particularly since 2021, it's significantly increasing. So these fires, again, if we're focusing on residential fires, they're disproportionately impacting children, they're disproportionately impacting new Canadians, they're disproportionately impacting people of Indigenous ancestry. You know, that's 10.5 times more likely to die in a house fire if you're Indigenous. 2.5 times more likely as an elderly person above the age of 80 across the country. And certainly mobility and cognitive issues as well. All of these factors make it more likely that you're going to be dying in a house fire. And the single biggest statistic we can come back to every single day is that 55%, that's your likelihood of dying, 55% decrease if you have a working smoke alarm in your home. So continuing with the trends, you know, in the 1970s, the average time between initiation of that fire of a smoke detector and flashover was 17 minutes. That's a huge number. You can get a lot done in 17 minutes. If we're talking about time for a fire truck to arrive to your home, if we're talking about a time from somebody to call the PSAP for that PSAP to pass the call onto the emergency service, 17 minutes is a lot of time to work with. In a lot of urban centers, you can have fire department on staff before that flashover point. In 2007, keeping in mind that that's, 16 years ago? So that, 2007, that had already gone down to 4.5 to 4 minutes. So likelihood is probably that that's gone even further. What we're seeing is that the fires are reaching that flashover stage and they're getting to that point where survivability is unlikely much, much, much faster. But yet at the same time, we really haven't seen a whole lot of evolution in terms of the residential fire and life safety requirements. You know, the most recent change that we've seen for detached Part 9 dwellings is the fact that your firearms have to be, or your smoke alarms have to be interconnected. That's not a huge change. And nobody's suggesting that we need to take homes and make them non-combustible and that we need to have fire-rated doors on every bedroom, but we really haven't evolved a whole lot in terms of what we require for life safety systems for residential dwellings. So, you know, what we're seeing is that downwards trend in how much time it takes for that fire to be survivable. It relates to fuel loading. You know, people have got a lot more combustibles in their home. We've got combustibles that are made with a whole lot more plastics and hydrocarbons and various other products. And, you know, we've got listing standards all over the place for flammability of products, but if you don't buy a product that has that, you're not going to have it. So what we're seeing is there's a whole lot of combustible materials in the average home. Construction type, as much as we hate, you know, whatever the opposite of open concept is, closed concept, it worked from a fire protection perspective. If you've got conventionally framed rooms, you've got doors that are frequently closed, everything's segmented, that adds to the time. It decreases the likelihood that that fire is going to continue from one compartment to the next. But now, like we see in the picture, you know, we've got beautiful open atriums, we've got LVL beams that span the entire structure. You know, we've got multiple floors with almost mezzanines in between and open hallways. So we've got vertical pathways, we've got horizontal pathways. You pay a pretty penny for it. But if you continue a fire condition, all of this is going to allow that fire to speed throughout the home in a fairly quick fashion. But again, like I said, we've still got the fire and life safety system requirements for a Part 9 structure really haven't evolved since 1970. So again, with the increased amount of combustible products, dangerous gases that are being produced, we're seeing a significant challenge on the survivability side, to the point where if you've been 10 minutes from the point of that fire being incipient, the likelihood of still being alive in that structure is less than 1%. So this notion, unfortunately, that somebody that's on a fire department is going to come to your house, pull you out of the window, do a little bit of CPR, and you're going to go on your life is very unrealistic at this point. And I think one of the things that we're working from a fire prevention perspective is to try to communicate this with people. You're on your own. It doesn't matter if you're in downtown Toronto or if you're in rural New Brunswick with a 27-minute response time. It's up to you. You need to have the life safety systems in your home to get people out, to get yourself out, and to be aware of what's happening. And you have to do it in 2 minutes, 3 minutes. So just as an example, I took a look on some available data there, and this was a major metro department here in Ontario, and their average response time was 7 minutes and 10 seconds. So off the top of my head, the CAN ULC standard for alarm monitoring, is it 30 seconds or 60 seconds to the PSAP? 30? Okay, so you've got 30 seconds. There's 30 seconds right there. That's from the alarm to being that call going to a PSAP agency. That PSAP, I don't forget what the standard is, but I believe it's about 2 minutes, a minute to 2 minutes. So now we're looking at 2.5 minutes. Take that with the average, this is an urban department in Toronto, a large urban department. Their average response time is 7 minutes and 10 seconds, average. We're looking at 10 minutes. So the likelihood of a structural fire department in Canada pulling someone out of a window successfully is virtually no. It's something that, of course, we see in the news. It's a great story, but it's not the reality. The reality is that Canadians now and in the future will continue to rely on life safety systems, maybe even more so in the future moving forward. So what are we seeing at a high trend? One, more Canadians are dying now in the past 2 decades. And as we see external factors now, it was not that long ago that the idea of a forest fire coming through a community and taking out 100 homes, 200 homes, that was unheard of. We talked about maybe a fire like that happening in 1910 or, in Michigan or in Wisconsin, or the Great Fire of 1825 in New Brunswick. But we, for a long time, we got that out of our narrative. We built ourselves these communities and these structures and these homes where we've truly felt resilient. A fire department was going to come, they were going to haul us out of the window, there's going to be a room and contents fire, and they were going to put it out. That's not the reality anymore. We're facing challenges not only from inside the home, from the outside as well. So again, having effective life safety systems that take all of this into account are going to be really essential moving forward. We're reversing a 100-year trend. The past 2 years are really starting to see a negative trend in terms of fire fatalities. Obviously, it's very pronounced in British Columbia, here in Ontario as well, but we're seeing it in New Brunswick. And the reality is that we don't have clear answers yet. We're going to have data coming out, we'll input that into the code cycle, but solutions are 5 years out. Solutions are 10 years out. Most of those fatalities that are occurring at home with 1 or 2 family, small Part 9 dwellings. These are structures that the life safety systems really have not changed a whole lot from. Maybe there was a slight modification on where a smoke alarm needs to go. Maybe there were slight modifications on how many you should have, or the need for a carbon monoxide alarm. We all worked very hard to have that. But really, these are very basic requirements. And many groups, everybody lives in a home. And a lot of people live in detached dwellings. And really what we need to do is we need to see that those groups that are most at risk, Indigenous, young people, elderly, people with mobility challenges, new Canadians, we need to make sure that the homes that these people are living in are going to be safe for them. And lastly, fires are burning faster. They're burning faster, hotter, and they're giving occupants a lot less time to escape. So all of our thinking and all of our codes are really based on information from 30 years ago. And what we need to do is we need to make sure that we're being innovative to move past that. So next we'll talk about codes and standards. Of course, we have National Building Code, National Fire Code, NFPA, CAN-ULC, etc. All of those responsibilities and all those codes fall on the provinces and territories for adoption. These are the membership for the Canadian Council of Fire Marshals and Fire Commissioners. We apply those codes and standards across the country. We apply them both actively and passively. So in New Brunswick, for example, if you're a sleeping accommodation, or a hotel, that sort of thing, or a care occupancy, or you're a school, or you've got more than 50 people, you have to submit to us, and we will inspect you. But there's a whole lot of places that are 30, 40 people. There's a whole lot of places that are residential Part 9. We're talking about 4-unit apartment buildings. There's a lot of building. In fact, the majority of the buildings we're not inspecting. That's not to say that they don't have to follow the code, but a fire inspector will never look at it. A fire inspector, unless there's a complaint, will never come onto it. So we're looking at a small group of the buildings. We're looking at a small group, the high-risk people, certainly. But the reality is that we're good at it. And this should all come as a compliment to all this. This is not doom and gloom. We've done very, very well. For buildings that are large Part 3 buildings, large Part 9s, places where there are life safety systems in place, people do not die, generally speaking, in those buildings. I've been the fire marshal since 2019 in New Brunswick. We've had 35 fire fatalities since that time. One of them happened in a building that we inspected. One of them happened in a building that had those life safety requirements. And in all reality, it probably wouldn't have changed the outcome. So we should be good. We should be happy with the work that the CFAA and all of our allied professionals have done, for 100 years. We've gotten very good at those buildings. But what we need to do now is we need to look at the next focus. Where else can we focus to help Canadians, to help protect people and their belongings? And like I said, there's active and passive compliance. Us as legislators, we will never have the appetite, we will never have the political will to inspect every single building in our jurisdiction. If somebody came and said, Mike, you're going to inspect 10,000 buildings a year, you're going to do 10,000 plan reviews, do 100,000 inspections, it's not going to happen. Government's never going to go for it. So the reality is that everybody that's in that other group, the piece that will never have somebody that looks like me coming to their door, how do we keep those people safe? It's not going to happen through catching. It's not going to happen through active compliance. It's not going to happen from an obligation for somebody to inspect it. It's going to happen passively. It's going to happen with people creating solutions, offering those solutions, selling those solutions, maintaining those solutions to those people. And like I said, really, for the buildings that we're all in, the buildings that we inspect, the building that your membership's involved in, the building that your systems are installed in, we're good at it. Those systems are safe. And we sit there and we argue about small things at code meetings, but the reality is that those systems are very safe. There's a lot of fail-safes. If there's a failure in the sprinkler system, it's still got separations. If there's a failure in the alarm panel, it's still got other life safety systems. We're very good at that. And that's where I think code comes into two things. Code comes into a stick, and code comes into a carrot. Generally, people that look like me have been limited to the stick. The reality is we've been there knocking on the door, and everybody, we've all seen, Jim Carrey's Fire Marshal. Is it Fire Marshal? Yeah, Fire Marshal Bill, that's what it is. So the perception of a fire marshal is that we show up, possibly ruin the day, we cost a little bit of money, and people are a little bit safer. I'm generally okay with that perception, but we're never going to stick everybody in Canada. We're never going to be the person that is there for every single house in this country. On the stick side, of course, we've got a code requirement. That's the active piece. You have to follow the code. You have to submit to us for plan. 4, 5, 6 weeks, we'll review it. You have to do the installation in compliance with the code. We'll follow up on that. There's going to be an initial inspection prior to commissioning. There's going to be a recurring inspection and validation piece, which we may look to see every year, every other year. It's a proven model, and it works. It has resulted in significant safety for building occupants where applied. So like I said previously, where we are, we're good at it. And I'm really excited to continue working with you guys in those buildings. But it comes as a downside. Conventional compliance costs time, it costs money, and it costs effort. So, we've got a phone call there earlier. The Deputy Minister in New Brunswick is personally involved in a project that they want to see a solution come forward. And we don't always have bad news, or good news, sorry. We don't always have good news here. Sometimes it's critical life safety systems that have to be commissioned. That's reactive. We're dealing with something in the 11th hour. It costs time, it costs money, and it costs reputation. I'd gladly be the first one if somebody wants to do a fire marshal parade, but we just don't get those yet. We don't have that same public perception just yet. So that's the stick. And previously, fire marshals, and I think to a certain extent you guys, have always existed in the stick environment. But there's opportunities, though. We have the carrot as well. Certainly when we see some of the NFPA standards coming out for residential sprinkler systems, that's not a requirement for small detached Part 9s. And we're seeing some really innovative stuff where people are voluntarily putting these systems in. They're seeing some concessions be made on limiting distance for structures because of it. They're putting non-combustible cladding on the outside. They're putting residential sprinkler systems inside the buildings in exchange for getting another 50 units into a piece. And I'm all for that. We have allied fire professionals, yourselves included, that can come up with innovative solutions based on optional code compliance. Insurance rebates. We're seeing insurance companies offer rebates for some of these systems. And again, like I said, your building probably doesn't need a residential sprinkler system if it's a two-unit residential. But if you want to come to me as the authority having jurisdiction and you want to propose it, absolutely, I'm all for it. So the code gives us an opportunity to go above and beyond what's already adopted through national model standards. It gives us lots of options for alternative solutions. So for us, as the authority having jurisdiction, we always have the prescriptive versus performance ability for the code. So yes, you may not be able to meet exactly what the code says, but you're going to propose something else, possibly based on another voluntary code. We'll entertain that all day long, provided that it's good for you and for your clients. And as always, I mean, it allows us, there's the opportunity for new, not yet adopted standards. New Brunswick, we've just adopted the 2015 National Building Code. You know, if someone were to come out tomorrow with an alternative solution for us that involved a standard in the 2020 National Building Code, we'd look at it in a heartbeat if it improved occupant life safety. So these are all the carrot capacities with it. We saw the stick, which is very, you know, the stick achieves compliance by any means. It takes a little bit of time and takes a little bit of money. The carrot is that there's code standards that allow for voluntary adoption of new standards for greater public safety. Now we look at post-code. And I think post-code is one of the biggest groups, both for my office to develop into, as well as your membership. You know, something we've been sitting as fire marshals and fire commissioners is how do we keep people safe in things that aren't directly under our purview? We don't have a mandate to go into somebody's personal home and make them do a whole lot. But you guys have that. You guys have your members available in every community in Canada. You guys service every community in Canada. You guys are there as reputable purveyors of fire and life safety solutions in those communities. So forget all about the fire marshal's office. You guys can be out there offering voluntary solutions that help people. You know, like I said, the fire and life safety requirements for detached 1 and 2 family dwellings pretty much haven't changed since the 80s and 90s. And I'll take that a step further. I really don't think they've changed a whole lot since the 70s. We've got a requirement for, you know, a $21 battery-powered alarm interconnected now. But these are not leaps and bounds. How much has construction changed in 40 years? How much has construction changed in 50 years? And how much have those life safety standards changed with them? The answer is not a whole lot. And you know, some people say, okay, well, let's develop legislation. Let's sit with NRCan and work on national model codes. Let's do all these things. And the reality is that we're not in a very good climate to do that. Homes are very expensive. There's, you know, if you suggested, again, I say this because I'm not from Ontario, but if you propose legislation in Ontario that would somehow slow down construction or impede construction in any way, it's not going to make it through the legislature. So that's something we're seeing across the country, is that home affordability and the ability to build homes quickly is very, very important. So if we're proposing sweeping legislation that's going to slow down Part 9 construction, we're not going to have a whole lot of success. And it comes down to public safety as well. We've seen it ourselves with the Building Code Administration Act. Is in a rural area, if somebody's building something for themselves that's a little bit sketchy, the appetite for us to enforce that versus something that could fall down on their neighbors, it's pretty different. What you want to do on your own property is not necessarily public safety. Is the public coming into there? Is the public coming into your garage? Are they coming into your house? Individual versus public. So I work for a public safety agency. I'm responsible to ensure greater public protection to the entire public. So for all these reasons, I don't think the best solution for Part 9 keeping people safe is going to come from us. Really from a code, and the other side is that the code system, which we work obviously on a regular basis, their priority is very different. Their priority is not on detached Part 9s. The code's looking at, you know, multi-unit, multi-story, large wood timbers. Efficiency focuses on energy, sequestered carbon. A lot of development, huge developments in Part 3 construction, big changes year over year. But what we're seeing is the Part 9, your small residential house, that's not really changing. Efficiency standards may change, but the fire and life safety hasn't. So what I truly believe is that a lot of the innovation and the growth in fire and life safety for 1 and 2 single-family dwellings, it's likely going to occur outside of the traditional code environment. It's going to come up with innovation. It's going to come with voluntary. It's going to come with incentives from insurance providers, from those sort of groups. It's going to come on a voluntary basis. It's not necessarily going to come from us. Unless you want to give me 600 inspectors from New Brunswick. I won't say. So I look at this and I'm saying, okay, what is your membership involved in this? And I truly believe this, that there's an opportunity for you guys. You guys are involved in buildings that the code says you have to be involved in. But you guys are fire and life safety system specialists. That's what you are, truly. So I look at this and I say, if you guys were going to bring something to the marketplace, if you guys were going to use your innovation, you guys were going to use your knowledge to create a system for somebody, what would it look like? Your widget, to me, is something that goes into a residence, moderate cost range, $100 to $1,000. Maybe there's a legacy monitoring cost. It increases the speed with which homeowners are notified of a fire/smoke. Whether there's a direct notification to a fire department, a primary or secondary stage alarm. Maybe you've partnered with an insurance agency and they're giving a discount for homes that have this installed. Maybe you're partnered with a local municipality or a fire marshal's office to run a pilot program. Maybe you've gotten fire prevention officers doing this installation on a voluntary basis for public housing. And the provincial authority having jurisdiction, they support you with this, whether it's through a communications campaign or anything like that. And I think the big thing here is that it's not a code-based solution. It's a voluntary widget that you guys have brought into the marketplace based on what you do best, which is life safety systems. It's not mandatory. You're not going to find a reference to it in a code book. You're not going to find a requirement to it in the NFC. It's a voluntary widget. So I say this as an example. This is, to me, what we need in Canada. And I look to the people that are best suited to bring this to the marketplace. I don't think it's someone in Palo Alto, California. And I don't think it's some of the trunk slammers that we'll talk about on the next slide either. So what are the opportunities? What are the opportunities we have moving forward for our joint group? I think it's new products and offerings. I think it's new things brought out into the marketplace, forgetting all about the code book. It's new products that you guys are offering to your membership. I think it's better data sets with greater availability. Like I said, there was no national reporting of structure fires until the NFID project about 2013, I think we started that. But after the Dominion Fire Service left, that was it. The provinces were on their own. So with that, having better data sets would allow you guys to better market your products, your future products and your current products. It would allow you guys to realize which communities have the highest risk and to try to address them. One of the tools that we've come up with, I shouldn't say we, the Fire Commissioner in British Columbia, along with Stats Can, it's the map that we see in the lower right-hand corner there. So what they've done is they've taken 20 years fire data for everybody in Canada, and they've cross-referenced it with the thousands of data sets that Statistics Canada has. And what it's done is it's looked at on a block-by-block basis for every British Columbia community and said that this place has a statistical Stats Canada risk, whether that's their significant population of old people, high unemployment rate, any of those other demographics, combined with a fire likelihood risk, which is based on fire incident historic data. So if you combine the two of them, you get a fairly accurate projection on a block-by-block basis, the likelihood of a fire fatality in that community. And not just in that community, but in that actual block. So this tool is available for British Columbia on a trial basis, and it's likely going out across the country. But what we'll be able to see with greater confidence is the communities that best need our solutions. And make no mistake, there's a value in this. People value the safety of their homes. People value the safety of their families. And quite frankly, the competition that's out there right now, it's a little unnerving to me. So the other thing we're doing is that here in New Brunswick, just as an example, up until April 1st of this year, when a fire is investigated, a PDF report was saved. That PDF report goes on the shelf, and unless we're subpoenaed or have a court or civil case coming up, never gets seen again. We weren't doing anything with the analytics. Now it's done on a GIS base. We look at contributing factors. We look at racial factors. We look at new Canadians. We look at every single piece of Statistics Canada data that we have, because we're really trying to see from a data perspective where are our resources best served. One thing we're looking for, and one of the reasons I'm excited to be here today, is I'm looking for closer working relationship with you guys. And I don't want this to just be the relationship of I'm waiting for a commissioning report from you. I want to be involved on the prevention side. I want you guys to be involved on the prevention side. I want you guys to create solutions for the marketplace that we're going to happily be able to go on. Nothing would make me happier than for the code book to be this dusty book that I look at one day a week, as opposed to something that we do the entirety of our work in. And I think that's the cooperation that we're going to have to get to. And I think it takes both parties, but what we need is informed, motivated homeowners, constructors, and developers. And we're seeing it now. If you're able to show them a business case for residential sprinklering where they can add 5% more units in exchange for safer units, that's a win-win. But we need to be communicating those sort of things. So you saw there previously, I had kind of the two side-by-side examples of what we used to do as a fire marshal's office and what we're looking to become. So on the inspection side, like I said, we do between 5,000 and 8,000 inspections a year. Asterisk to that, it's got almost 400,000 buildings in New Brunswick. So we're not inspecting a whole lot of them. The people certainly aren't dying in the buildings we're inspecting, but there's a whole lot of buildings out there that aren't being met with a code compliance stick. On the plan review side, we're doing between 400 and 500 plan reviews a year. We had 4,600 housing starts last year. So we're not inspecting all of those either. We're not doing plan reviews on all of those. So again, this is where we need a non-code solution. Investigations, we're doing maybe 400 investigations a year. That's out of almost 3,000, or a little over 3,000 structure fires. And then lastly, the support for firefighter training. What does that mean? How does that keep people safe? So what we should look like, what I feel like we should be, is inspection and prevention. We're providing guidance to municipalities, developers, and homeowners to maximize and incentivize the construction and conversion of safe buildings. We got to get their buy-in here too. This is carrot-based solution stuff. Investigation, using our fire investigation data to drive code, education, and prevention changes. If you asked me 5 years ago what the increased fatality rate for people with mobility issues in New Brunswick is, I couldn't tell you. I can tell you now. It's 18 times more likely if you have a mobility issue. But we need to have that data if we're going to make cases for this. And support. Support fire departments and any allied professionals, yourselves, your membership, and developers and homeowners to make their homes safe. So that's where I want us to go as an office. This is the kind of three perceptions historically of the fire marshal's office versus where I think we should be. So, we've got fire marshal bill, we've got an order to shut down a building, and we've got a closed building. Conventionally, on the other side, we've got residential sprinkler systems, we've got smart homes with integration with alarm systems, and we've got community risk reduction GIS planning. So that's the transition of where we need to go to. This is carrot and this is stick. And we need to get away from the stick side and getting into the carrot side. So for you guys, I would ask you guys to go through the same question. You guys are in the building because the code says you have to be in the building. But there's an immense opportunity that exists out there across the country for your guys' membership. And I'm turning to you because I truly think that you guys are the best suited to bring solutions to the marketplace. And the only thing I said is, helping fire professionals keep Canadians safer. I think you should be helping keep Canadians safer, period. I don't think that the fire professionals, whether it's us, need to necessarily be involved. You guys can be involved with the homeowner. So where can CFAA develop? How can the CFAA members expand their service offerings? And how can the CFAA leverage its role in the industry to create new offerings to clients? I see that looking like working with fire professionals, development, construction, insurance agencies at the municipal, provincial, federal level, making connections in your local areas, reaching out to fire departments. Like the fire hall is there. You've got fire prevention divisions in almost every community you serve, whether it's provincial or municipal. They're more than interested in a lot of places in looking at projects like this. And look at pilot projects. You don't have to have an initiative and roll it out across the entire country. You can try something on the hyper-local level. We've got projects in New Brunswick that involve, I think it's 18 provincially funded low-income housing units. Like just projects on a very small local level. And use the code as a jumping off point. I think the code, in a lot of times, will probably eventually catch up, but we're in a position now on the detached dwelling side where we can't afford to wait. We need to come up with solutions for the marketplace now. And this is the competition. And I say this because about 2 weeks ago, we had to make, or it was about a month ago now, we had to make a complaint to the Financial Consumer Advocacy, some sort of provincial group in New Brunswick that they govern the door-to-door salesmen in New Brunswick. We had people going door-to-door in New Brunswick. They would light a pool of gasoline in your kitchen. They would walk through and tell how every one of your kitty and code-compliant CAN ULC approved smoke alarms was garbage, how your family was going to die, And if you didn't sign a contract for their very, very, very expensive alarm monitoring system, that you weren't gonna, that your family's safety was gonna be jeopardized. So this is the competition that's out there right now. They're beating down doors, they're changing their names every couple weeks, and this is a solution for a 3-bedroom house, $11,750. So that's what they were selling these people on a 2-year service contract. And they're doing it with dangerous at-home demonstrations. They're doing it with incredibly high sales pressure tactics. Any of the stuff that you guys have seen out there with like water testing, that's a very common scam. This is the same thing. They've changed. They're doing fire alarm, residential fire alarm stuff. So they've lost there's consideration for fraud charges being brought forward. We're considering charging them under the Act, because you can't go into somebody's house and light gasoline on fire. You don't need to be a fire marshal, I'll tell you that. But that's one competition. The other competition is, you've got Google or some sort of nameless, high-tech company offering solutions for the residential marketplace. But cost and reputation, you guys are in those communities. You guys are commensurate fire alarm professionals. You are the fire alarm professionals in this country. What solutions can you guys bring to the residential marketplace? Because I've seen the competition and I don't like it. And I think you guys can do a whole lot better. So conclusions. The number of Canadians dying in structure fires are growing. This is bucking a 100-year trend that goes back to when this country was created. We've got more people in Canada than ever before. We've got more buildings than ever before. But we're seeing a lot of new factors and a lot of new challenges emerge. And what we need is improvements that help Canadians that are living in detached 1 and 2 family homes. We can't wait for code to catch up. And I say this as a person that sits on a bunch of different code committees. They're not going to get there in time. As alarm system experts, the expertise, trust, and experience lies within your membership. So I put the challenge to you guys. I'm an open book. I will work with anybody that works within our jurisdiction in New Brunswick or through the Canadian Council of Fire Marshals and Fire Commissioners. But what innovations can you guys and your membership offer to protect Canadians and their properties from fire? So, with that, any questions for me? Got one in the back if we've got a mic.
Yeah, hi, Michael. Ralph Coco with Potter. You mentioned about the 55% survivability if the detector is working properly. And I'm just wondering, and I'm surprised that the National Research Council of Canada hasn't looked at frequencies that, will awaken more sleeping people. It could be a frequency issue, like, I don't know. Like, if that's the survivability rate, then maybe, we should look at maybe a more lower frequency that more people will be awakened. I know in the city of Vancouver, they're interfacing strobes for the hearing impaired, which is a step in the right direction, right? So you've got a smoke alarm, and then it's got a relay, and the relay is powering a strobe that's tied to 120 volts AC. Well, that's a step in the right direction. Maybe the next step is to look at frequencies coming out of the actual detector to see which is the best frequency that people can hear when they're asleep.
I 100% agree. Really the requirements, both in terms of decibel and distance and frequency, I don't think that's changed in 20 years, 30 years. Very, very, very good question. And this is the sort of thing that, from your guys' perspective, we should be asking. Yeah, thank you. Any other questions? Nope, sorry.
Don Moyeski, I'm a past president of the CFAA and a life member. To answer part of Rob's question, that has been looked at. Trouble is it's legislation. It's taken 10 years to get before the National Building Code. It's probably been another 5 years before it's implemented. So yes, it's being looked at, but as you said, anything that's code-related takes a long time. The other thing I wanted to ask you was, with all this trend to working from home, do you see that having an impact on the number of deaths?
What we initially saw in New Brunswick, and again, we're quite small by comparison, so it's kind of hard to draw conclusions. Initially, in that work from home piece, when COVID first happened, we saw the structure fires actually decrease. And what we figured is that people weren't working, they were home, catching fires in the incipient stage. Now that some people are remote working from home on an actual basis and actually working, we don't have the data to draw correlations yet, but what I do know is that the amount of people dying in residential fires is increasing. So I don't know if that's directly because they're home more now, or there's more ignition as a result of that. But certainly, causation does not equal correlation, but those are the data sets that we need to look at.
So from a data set perspective, I was having this conversation yesterday. So the number of deaths have risen to 133, but the population for the first time in history has grown by, what, 1.5 million in Canada? So is it a matter of population growth? Like, so is it per capita, deaths per capita, or we just look at 133? Because unfortunately, if we continue to bring in, if we continue to grow our population, if you look at any country in the world that has larger populations, they're going to have larger subsets of bad things happening to those populations, right? So if we're on a growth trajectory, and I don't want to say that 133 is a good number, or that next year we're going to have 150 and 180 and 200 as we grow, but reality is there's more car accidents, there's more cancer cases, there's more everything as population grows. And Canada is on this mean trajectory of population growth. Look at the number of houses that we have to build in the next 3 years. With that, there's going to be a number of house fires that go along with it. So do we correlate that at all?
It's outpacing. It's outpacing the population growth by, I think, like 2.4 to 1.
Okay.
I can't remember what the percentage growth was. You're right, we were seeing record growth, but the pace of fire fatalities is exceeding that growth by a considerable factor. And I mean, when you're looking at housing, if you've got a considerable population growth, that's going to put pressure on housing. You're going to have people that are living in substandard conditions. You're going to have people that aren't able to keep up with inspections. You're going to see all those pressures. But that's why I think as allied professionals, we need to come up with not only code stick-based solutions, but also non-code voluntary based solutions. Because really the problem is detached Part 9 dwellings, truly.
You mentioned innovation. In the U.S., they've adopted a new requirement for the design of smoke detectors, which comes into effect in June of 2024. We're going through the same exercise in Canada with the ULC standard to adopt that requirement. And I think Don mentioned it's going to take 10 years to get adopted into our code. I think that in itself, if it was pushed through, once we have the product available, would do a lot for saving lives. And I think that the cost point for that versus what we have today, not that much different. The only other thing I'll say about Canada versus, let's say, our neighbors to the south, we've implemented a pretty stringent requirement for interconnected smoke alarms over the years, and that in itself is a huge means of detecting things earlier and saving lives in the children that are in other rooms, people that are not able to move as quickly. When you know there's something going on, you have an opportunity to help get those people out. So, I think the innovation's coming. It's not probably coming fast enough, but maybe the fire marshals can help push things through a little quicker once that technology is readily available.
Yep, and we'll support you guys from a code perspective wherever we can, even if it means adopting through a tech note or something like that, newer versions of a specific standard. More than willing and interested in that sort of thing.
I had one. For those, I was thinking out, those interconnected smoke and CO systems, those for residential, single-family, two-family dwellings that you're speaking of, I mean, would they be monitored by, are you suggesting like one of our companies that would have a monitoring, that already monitors for large multi-residential?
Yep.
That they would actually stretch into this residential marketplace?
Yep. Absolutely. I think you guys have a massive expansion potential in the residential marketplace. I think we do too, but I'm generally limited by code. I'm never going to be, the solution that gets out there in every residential dwelling. I think you guys have the possibility.
I believe there are some manufacturers, and if I'm not mistaken, Steve, I even think Honeywell spun off Residio. Residio is dealing with smart home infrastructure. So it's just a matter of working with the builders and developers that sometimes don't want to put these enhanced safety features into homes. And I had the same issue when we were working in electrical safety, you know, with arc fault circuit interrupters that were revolutionary for helping in electrical fires, and they did the same thing. They were not that expensive, but we couldn't get the builders to put them in, and the only way to do that was through the stick, which is through the code. And
you gotta wait.
yeah, and when you think about it, $300 over the cost of a home, that an electrical system that likely will be in there for 40 years, and a fire safety system, at least 10, an interconnected smoke and CO, at least 10 years to be in there, that, you know, why can't we get the builders to offer these as options? Because they're certainly happy to offer you upgraded kitchen cabinets, floors, granite.
Yep, at $40,000 or $80,000, but they won't think twice.
But they won't offer $300, you know, arc fault circuit interrupters throughout the house, or smoke, interconnected smoke systems, advanced systems.
And I think that this is where we need to become better, salesmen, so to speak, right? Like we look at this and we're starting to see a bit of it with the residential sprinkling stuff, where they're getting an agreement from an insurer in this state that 10% decrease on premiums for the duration of that property. That's happening for this community in conjunction with the fire marshal's office, in conjunction with the home builders. Home builders are getting concession on the separating distance between the structures. They can fit more units in. Fire department or authority having jurisdiction is giving a concession on the turnaround for the fire trucks because they all have residential sprinkling. So what does a solution look like that for you guys and for your membership and your solutions? And that's the sort of thing where, and again, on the builder's side, being responsible for building code as well, you got to get that involved. There has to be a very clear carrot, and I just don't think we have ever sold ourselves like that to them in that side. It's a very different mindset, right? I'm technically an inspector. I got lots of inspections. We do lots of inspections. So to take off that hat and try to entice people that we've always regulated, it's tricky. But that's the kind of relationship I want us to develop into. We had one over here and then over here. I think we had one here first.
Is this working? I might as well go ahead.
Sure.
1, 2, 2, 1. Who cares, right? Maybe I'm buried in the code structure that I've been involved with for so long. However, I have to every year have my backflow preventer checked to make sure that I don't put something into the water system. And I have to pay for it as a homeowner, and it's required, right? So why can't it be required that you get more legs by requiring that smoke alarms be tested, checked by service companies such
on the
as
residential
this?
side.
Yeah, and then, because I know, if you say, well, no, I'm different, most people will say, voluntarily, I'm going to have to spend $300 or $400. No, I'm not going to do that.
Mhm.
Right? You have to have that damn stick, unfortunately, to make people do the right thing. That's why we have laws. So, I can see you getting a lot more legs, which is what you say you're missing. You can't do all these inspections. You don't have enough people, don't have enough funding. How much money would be saved if this was implemented as a requirement? How much do you save from the fire service, from the damage, from the reconstruction that's necessary? The people that have died all have a cost associated with their lives, right?
Mhm.
So, there is a societal saving, even though society individually has to pay for the service. I mean, that's an instant thought. I haven't thought that through.
I agree fully. I think the challenge is that I'm limited as a public safety official. I'm limited to what I can get passed through a legislature. And in order to propose that, I have to have buy-in from the Insurance Bureau of Canada, the individual brokers that state that whatever cost I'm placing onto the consumer, whether it's through tax revenues or through service providers or any of that, I need to make sure that there's a business case to state that they're going to get that back on the other side. And even within government, we could spend 3-4 years developing an initiative to, say, create legislation for fire alarm technicians in New Brunswick. It gets to the legislature, they might not make it off the floor.
Part of your mandate, though, is public education.
Yeah.
Right? So, I mean, nothing starts without having the public aware of the issues.
And that's where I think there's an opportunity for pilot projects. We can get a 200 home subdivision on board. We can have a local zoning ordinance that requires it. We do it on a voluntary basis and we get the buy-in from the insurance company. Then you've got data so that in 5 years you can go and look and say, hey, provincially, this was a net benefit to the consumer for this area, therefore let's make it law provincially. It's a challenge though, and a time associated with all this too. But I retire in 2054. So I got a little bit of time to worry about.
I'm already retired, so
There you go.
I guess I can go out and do some sales pitches.
There you go.
How would you fight? Basically, we look at Canadian National Building Code. I think if we need to have a change, it needs to pass by that. And if we look at the cycle right now, so we look at the 2025 cycle, we've been working for fire protection for the last 5 years on implementing different proposal, and we got all bumped because of green buildings. So how would you fight that on a security level to basically promote our solution that we've been working all those last 5 years to promote fire security whenever our government authority look at that and basically put that back because we need to have insulation that armor green in our buildings?
To quote Nike, just do it. I truly think that situations like that, we're the same way. We propose things and then it doesn't make it off the NRC table because there's other priorities. That's a situation where if we get an answer like that, where it says, no, we're not developing legislation, or no, we're not modifying code at this time, we take it back and say, okay, what's a limited pilot project that we can do, we can run successfully, so that in 5 years when we're asking this question again, we're in a better spot to get it through. Because we've got data to support it, we've got products in the marketplace, we've got more, don't let the code slow you down, effectively, is what I'm suggesting. And even from an individual perspective, is that seek that local approval. Usually the authority having jurisdiction has some variability in terms of that prescriptive code of compliance. Look for a jurisdiction that's willing to accept that on a limited project.
So basically you're asking us to go see our different authority having jurisdiction by each provinces to convince them to adopt something that is not adopt Canadian-wide, where on Canadian side they're looking at harmonization of each code, where we're going to have one code for each province. That seems to be tricky.
Yep. Short answer is yes. But when we're doing that, we're not letting the code slow us down. It's one thing to just say, oh, I didn't get it in the code, shucks, that's it. The other alternative is to say, okay, I didn't get it in code, I got it locally approved in this ordinance, this area as an alternative solution. I'm going to show that in 5 years, the data for this project can be extrapolated across the country or across the province.
I have to agree with what you're saying, because I think it would be a big mistake to wait on code cycles. And I say that because I'm from Manitoba.
Congratulations.
The year is 2023,
Yeah.
and Manitoba's still working on 2010.
And you're leapfrogging right to the 2020, aren't you?
Potentially, but we were supposed to be on 2015 and they pulled the plug on that. So for all we know, they could pull the plug and say we're waiting for 2024, or sorry, 25.
Yeah.
The point is to wait or rely solely on a code change, I think is a big mistake. I think to be proactive and go to our respective authorities having jurisdiction and look at ways, like it was just mentioned, perhaps looking at smoke alarm testing in residential private homes, single family, making that a requirement. That might be the first step.
Do it through a bylaw.
I was just going to say,
have
in 35-2017 in Winnipeg, there's a requirement for landlords to have their smoke alarms tested. There is nothing there for single-family dwellings, so perhaps that's a step to take.
Mm-hmm.
And AHJs do like to see what each other are doing, and if we can get a handful on board, then perhaps the rest of us in collaboration will have some success.
Nothing would make me happier than one of you guys as a member reaching out next year to say, hey, Mike, we've got this pilot project for this certain part of New Brunswick, making a presentation to the Canadian Council of Fire Marshals and Fire Commissioners, and then us supporting it as a code change request for 2025. That's how I'd love to see it work.
There's a comment online that's more so for the sales folks, for manufacturers in the room. that many manufacturers have a small 3 to 5 zone panel that would be a perfect fit for residential occupancies. So I guess it's more of a challenge and a comment for the manufacturers and the salespeople to go hit the, single detached or, duplexes, triplexes, whatever it may be, so.
And I think, what we saw here in Halifax 2 weeks ago, where they lost a number of homes, we will see that again. We will see that likely this summer. We will see it next summer. We will see it in every summer in years to come. So there's going to be a lot more communities, a lot more provinces that are looking more closely at adopting standards that increase the availability for somebody to go to fire quickly, to know that a fire is there, all this sort of stuff. Yeah. What's that? Yep, within structures, yeah, exactly. If you can get past the design ugliness of it to some people, but. Yeah. Did we have another question?
Yes. As a person who has a driver's license in Ontario, if I allow myself to be monitored, I get a 10% discount on my insurance rates. Now, even as someone who has spent 35 years with USA standards, sometimes I think we are too focused on codes and standards. What we should, as an organization, be doing is focusing on the insurance companies. Talk to them. Prove to them that they can save money by having smoke alarms monitored. And then they will go to their customers and say, just like they come to me, get myself monitored as a driver, you get 10%, have your house monitored for smoke alarms, we'll give you a 10% discount.
100%. The Office of the Fire Marshal in New Brunswick and a lot of other places are not usually funded through tax revenue. We are funded exclusively through a 1% levy on every single fire insurance policy in the province of New Brunswick. So what that means is that my office is, I think, about $4.5 or $5 million. So that's 1% of the total valuation of fire insurance policies in New Brunswick, $500 million. So that's what's being spent right now for people to insure their residential and commercial lines in New Brunswick. That's the group that's got big skin in the game. If you can reduce losses for them, they're interested in incentivizing that sort of thing. Any other questions? Well, thank you guys very much. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks again, Michael. I think that's food for thought, particularly for all the manufacturers and the people that are sitting in the room. You can think of Wi-Fi, what you could do with that. You can think of, many of the systems that we have in housing right now. And it gives me great pleasure to announce that we are ahead of schedule. All right, so we're going to put up a QR code later so that you can make a motion so that we'll adjourn the meeting. But first, I'd like to recognize some of the people, since some of them have already retired, but I'd like to have, if you were a past president of the Canadian Fire Alarm Association, if you could stand and be recognized. And in closing remarks, I'd like to say that we have a reception started out in the hall. Well, maybe we're too early for that. I remember one time I sent a whole bunch of people into a room to go get food, and they got there and the hotel said, no, we're not ready. Someone give me a thumbs up that we're ready for that? 4:30, so we're not ready. All right. What was that, Randy? Not ready. Okay, so that's fine. We'll still give you a 15-minute break, but we'll put up a QR code. The hand signs aren't working, Jackie. What? Okay, so she wants to talk to you, or you're?
Yes, we're just asking that all old and new board members please meet in the reception area for a photograph as we disperse.
Oh,
so we can get
awesome.
one photograph
Okay.
all together. But
Thank
I
you.
understand you haven't closed the meeting yet.
Right. So we're going to put up a QR code, and anybody who wants to vote, I'm just kidding. We don't need a motion for that, but somebody does usually make a motion that they want to close or adjourn the meeting. Who's that? Simone? Seconder? Don Barnowski. All right. Then we do have a gavel this time. We'll adjourn the meeting. Go ahead. And dinner is at 6 p.m. In this room? Okay, so we have a change order to do. Perfect. Thanks.
Guys, give them 5 minutes.